We'll call the meeting to order. Stand for the pledge of allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anybody want to make any changes or make a motion to approve our agenda?
Is the one on the table the same as the one that was online?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
We've got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Somebody like to make a motion to approve our board minutes for September 6th?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. Motion, second, to approve the board minutes. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This time we'll take public comment. Want to hear from the public? Got anything to say? All right. Let's move on, I guess. Appointments. The budget request at the end of the meeting, correct?
Yeah.
Somebody want to make a motion to approve the consent agenda? Or make a change?
Just a curiosity question. Mark is here, but is number 5? She used to work for the county and left.
City.
67 days.
Okay, I see. I knew I remembered the name. Okay.
Questions?
And those 2 new hires that we're talking about, that's the Spring Grove officers. Luke Englet and Kendra Hine, that's the Spring Grove connection. Okay.
Very good.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is done. Action items, consider approving a resolution number 22.
Brian's not here. We're gonna do it without him.
Oh, he's right across the hall.
Right.
They're all about the same.
Yeah, it looks like they're about the
Oh,
same.
Brian.
Then we get to 5.
All right, now that you're here, consider approving a resolution number 22-44, final acceptance for a CP 2022-01 contract 322 with Union Rock Products Incorporated for shouldering. Total cost of $295,353.71. Brian.
So on this one, the original contract amount was $297,493.81. So the total quantity used was just under the contracted amount. So this for the shouldering, all the work's been complete and we need to final out.
Make a motion, we approve the resolution.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to approve. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consider approving a resolution number 22-45, final acceptance for SAP 028-599-098 /SAP 028-599-100 contract 318 with Van Gundy Excavating LLC for bridge replacements. Total cost was $301,079.
Yeah, so this one, the original contract amount was $294,951. So the work did come in about 6,000 over the original contracted amount. This is for two bridges that were replaced on Rooster Valley Road. The extra cost primarily was extra aggregate for around the pipes for bedding, and then also aggregate for the road surface. So work's been complete, vegetation's grown, ready to close the project out.
Make a motion, we accept the resolution, finish off the contract.
Second. A motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Consider approving a resolution number 22-46, final acceptance for a CP 2022-5 contract 324 with Sewer Lines A-Lot LLC for paving markings.
So this had original contract amount of $102,655.41. Work certified is $106,395.59. So this is marking the vast majority of the center line stripes on the county roadways, along with some fog lines and then the crosswalks within some municipalities.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Second. Motion and second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 4, consider approving resolution number 22-47, final acceptance for SAP 028-599-094, contract 319 with Minnewatt Construction Incorporated for the Rooney Valley Bridge replacement. The total cost was $629,291.26.
So this is the final bridge replacement here. Original contract, $627,763.25. So this project started last fall, finished up this spring once the weather cooperated, and then again, had to wait for vegetation to close the project out, so.
Is it requirement or not a requirement, but suggested that they seal coat that next year, the approaches?
Yeah, so I do like seal coating that asphalt right away the next year. Helps prevent that pavement from cracking quite a bit. If they don't do it next year, then what the state generally says is if you don't do it in year 1, you can wait till year 5. Just because at that point, you're already starting to get some of that water into the pavement, and then they say holding off to year 4 or 5 doesn't really harm it any more than doing it in year 2, so.
Make a motion, we approve the final acceptance of the contract.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the contract with Minnewatt. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Consider approving the resolution number 22-48. Resolution to extend the current Houston County Comprehensive Local Water Management Plan in the order to the transition to the one shed, one plan.
So Janice sent an email on this. It was in the packet. Have some questions.
Just a continuation of existing.
It's a transition to the one watershed plan, so. I move we accept it.
I'll second it.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second to accept the resolution. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, 6, consider approving the Houston County City of Spring Grove Professional Service Interagency Agreement. Mark England. Good morning.
Commissioners,
Morning.
What you got?
well, in your packet, you should have received the contract that's been proposed between the Sheriff's Office, County of Houston, and the City of Spring Grove for a 3-year contract to provide law enforcement services to the city. In addition to that is an attachment or an Exhibit A that more closely defines the services that we'll provide. That Exhibit A has been designed and put into the contract as a document that can be amended as needs arise between the sheriff and the city administrator of Spring Grove. We'll cover most of or pretty much the day-to-day operational needs and what Spring Grove would like us to do and what we can and can't do. So rather than have it so that we have to continue to take it to the board and the city council every time something comes up, the Exhibit A was put in there so that the sheriff and the city administrator can amend things as they need.
And as far as the vehicles, patrol vehicles,
The vehicles, we've arrived on a price with the city of Spring Grove.
For both?
We haven't brought that to the board yet.
okay.
Looking at it on page 2 of the contract, number 3, the consideration in terms of the, see there's a little typo in there. They were, you go through in the second line of each of those bullet points, they refer everything back to 2023. Bullet point number 2 should refer back to number 24, so on. It's just a little date changes. That's all I saw.
Well, that's, I believe that's actually correct, because the 2024 price would be 3% over the 2023 price.
Correct. But then,
Oh, and then the third one, yes, that should reflect the 24.
because they refer back to should refer back to the previous year is where I come up with that 5%. So that's the only thing I saw.
Okay.
Okay, questions for?
We do have Julie Amundson, the city administrator here. She and Jana is gonna take her place. If you guys have any questions for those folks.
You have any questions on it, Julie?
At this time, we're in the process of working on the purchase agreement for the 2 squads. And then lawyer right now.
Those comments aren't gonna show up.
Maybe you should come forward, Julie.
And state it again.
We have to get you on record here.
Thank you. We are working on a purchase agreement for the 2 squads, and that's at our attorney, Greg Cheever. And he's in the process of drawing something. He's been out of the office a little bit, so.
Okay.
Are you in a big rush for them?
So,
Okay. They are available for use when they are in town.
So the city council's approved this? If they have
they meet next week.
next week, so then it'll go to them for
Yep.
approval.
Yes.
Any other questions for him?
So Brian, you're confident in that number?
The numbers in the contract, yes.
It'll be sufficient
Yes.
to cover everything?
Based on what we know at the present time.
Correct.
Well, it's higher than it was originally.
Yeah, absolutely it was. Because we did find some things that were left out. I believe we've thought of everything so far.
Looked at what other counties have done in the past.
All counties are a little bit different, so it's hard to,
No, but I mean, gives you a starting point.
oh, yes, absolutely.
Fillmore County does this quite a bit for a lot of the small.
Yeah, they have 3 contracts that they maintain over there.
I don't know,
Dodge County has several.
I don't know if Winona County does a lot, but
I don't think Winona County does any. But
I didn't think so.
We're still doing Lanesboro.
No, Preston Police Department does Lanesboro now, but Fillmore does Spring Valley and Maple can. Maybe Harmony, I guess I can't remember that one for sure.
I think Harmony too.
What's that?
I think Harmony too.
Yeah.
The city doesn't have a problem with it. We've talked about this multiple times. I don't see a problem with it. I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, second. Okay, we've had a motion and a second to approve this services with Spring Grove and Houston County Sheriff's Department. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners.
Hey, Mark, can you go shut my lights off on my truck out here? It's open, so. Appreciate it.
It worked out. Send him a bill.
Otherwise, I'm gonna have to come and get your jumper cables.
Well, isn't he here to talk today? On that budget reviews?
Maybe so.
All right, well, I
Steve?
guess, or no, board updates. I haven't had
Yeah.
a meeting since the last time I guess we were here.
Okay. I messaged Steve.
On the table on Saturday
Somebody
night.
can-
That was a pretty good success.
Oh, good.
Was good. Outside of that, I guess I haven't been to no meetings, and I haven't had no butt chewing, so we're pretty good. about
I
you?
noticed we have the township meeting tomorrow
Oh, yeah, I
night,
forgot
6 o'clock. And I think we're signed up for that. We got an email from AMC that was a week ago. I did forward it to Donna this morning about signing up for the AMC conference, December 5th to 8th. So we can get hotel rooms in the same building, ideally.
That's good.
I'm planning on will be my last hurrah.
I'm
And,
glad I'm going.
I did go to the policy meeting. I presume you all did too. For mine was health and human services and public health. And what they're gonna bring up at the legislative conference this week, so. What passed and what didn't pass, and most did not pass because they didn't go into special session. And they don't think that, they want to till after the election for sure. So kind of disappointing a little bit because some of them were very important things as far as childcare and adult and children placement situations and stuff. So it's a 2-hour meeting though. It took longer than I thought. And that's all I have.
Hey, Bob.
I was at the Hiawatha Valley Mental Health meeting last week on Wednesday, talking about the improvements and what they're doing with the Sarnia building and the addition of staff that they put in a place to CCVHD clinic, new clinic that they've got set up, and how things are working out with Hiawatha Valley Mental Health. They're going pretty well. Wildcat meeting or a county parks meeting yesterday with regard to Cat and Botcher Park. Discussion about that, things that we can consider. One of the things that we talked about was a while ago, we said we should charge $5 to put boats in the water, $25 for the annual fee. Then the DNR comes and says, you can't do that because this is a DNR boat landing. The DNR contract or the DNR agreement expired in 1999. DNR can't tell us nothing. So the DNR said, if you charge $5 or $25, you have to pay for the improvements. Talked to Brian about this. You call the DNR to fix things. They don't show up for a year, maybe 2 years, if they show up at all. So if we can make $4,000 or $5,000 a year, granted, everything that's collected in the park has to stay in the park. Why do we depend on the DNR? We don't need the agreement. We haven't had the agreement for a number of years.
If we don't have an agreement, I'd say get that.
So that was part of the discussion. Then Had a meeting last night over at Casson for SEMCAC, talking about the new innovations and the new things that they're doing. They are having, they've got the three big things that they do. One of them is public transportation, rolling hills. And we see their buses around this area. They're expanding their operation and getting more buses. The trouble is they ordered buses a while ago, 6 buses. And that was 6-7 months ago. They have not been assigned any chassis yet. There might be 3 chassis assigned sometime early in 2023. They figure that the 6 buses they order, it's going to take 2 to 3 years to get the buses. So that's how bad things are getting as far as ordering things are getting. And today I got to set up a meeting in Rochester, so I haven't heard anything back as far as the counter offer that we made, so I might find something out about that tonight. So
Our counter was 2%.
2% for 3 years plus $6,000 per library for each year for 3 years.
Right.
Remember, they wanted
1 year.
1 year, $50,000. No,
They wanted a
$100,000 plus 6%. I can't remember what it was. It was not accepted. Anyways, haven't heard back.
I didn't have any meetings this past week except for land use this morning. Bob covered the main topic there.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. It's good.
No, Donna gave, that was part of her report. So,
Donna said she had the ballots in, so.
That's good.
It's gonna be challenging for the voting time for that bathroom construction going on, so she's worried about that. There's only been one person working on that project. So it's gonna, if that's the case, it's gonna take a long time.
mhm.
So like,
I was at EDA last week. I like to be Bluff Country Collaborative is the 22nd over at Caledonia High School. Talked about a few other things, some possible applications coming in. That was just informational. Was at City Council last night, La Crescent. Got the ribbon cutting next Monday for the new pedestrian bike bridge over Highway 61. Let's see what else was there. That's kind of the highlights of that. And we're ready for next Tuesday will be the bus tour for the land use plan.
just a reminder on that, if you guys haven't submitted your, yeah, those blue sheets yet, I get them in.
Blue sheets.
This
Oh,
green.
look green to me.
Yeah.
I'm missing the sheet.
This one here is.
Have you talked, what's the route?
The route as of yesterday has not been established. They're kind of waiting on this. I communicated with Samantha up in cities and she'll have that by the end of this week. So, you know,
I drove one route, and it depends on how long we want to stay on the bus.
yeah. I'm gonna have, the last I heard, there's, lunch provided in the bus type of thing.
Bag lunch.
Kind of a bag or sandwich deal. They're finalizing that also. But we do have the unit for 8 hours.
We got a driver.
Not sure yet. But we'll make it work. It's an old bus. It's 8 years old.
It'll do the job.
All right. How about closing public comment? Do we have anybody on that? Yes, we don't. So I guess now we'll go into our budget report. requests. Carol?
I talked about somebody that had one, so maybe that's. He mentioned, Brian mentioned that the DNR gal, fussy about anything you do. If you're putting rock at the end of the culvert, you need a permit. If you're gonna replace a culvert, you need a permit. Everything you do needs a permit. To do that work on the boat landing, need a permit. She commented, you know, Houston County's really busy. You gotta have a lot of permits. Fillmore County doesn't do anything. Fillmore County doesn't call the DNR, and tell them. Because like, you can't tell me they don't replace culverts, they don't fix it. I mean, come on.
We're doing Eric's first.
Yeah, the names on there really aren't in any order.
Okay.
It's kind of
Okay.
who shows up.
Who's available?
So Carol. I didn't bring my.
You didn't bring this?
I didn't bring that.
Well,
That's so intent on looking at the
At their other one.
the other one.
there you go.
Thanks.
Yes,
Just
Yep.
forgot.
I didn't, update anything and reprint anything because we will be updating and reprinting. But Mary, if you'd want to come up and be next.
You seem to have page 28.
Page 28.
I have the wrong page.
No, that's right.
Surveyor.
Yep, he's the surveyor. Mhm.
And I know you guys like cutting, but I only brought a black pen. So, got my red one downstairs, so I'm real sorry about that.
So last week, just in looking through it, they decided they would lower that. I'm not sure why we put $6,000.
There was a
in
potential
revenue.
helping out Fillmore County. I think
Okay.
we'll have more than 1,000, but we won't have 6.
Just leave it at one.
That's fine.
Okay.
Registration and training fees might look a little high, but we pay most of those in November, December. We keep it a little bit high anyways, to allow for Tammy to go to our conference every other year to keep her up to date on technology changes. I'm hoping to attend some GIS functions, which will cost money, but hopefully that comes out of the off years that Tammy doesn't go. So we should be able to make that work. Other than that, no big changes in our world.
So gas and maintenance in the surveyor's truck. 21 was $1,100.
Yep.
So far, only $254. I mean,
Very low.
it's 2,700. Accurate.
We could probably go down 2019, we had some real problems with the truck with electrical gremlins. I think that's what kind of sent that up, but it's 2007, 15-year-old truck, so we got
Is that flatbed, red?
no topper.
Okay, top of one.
Yeah. So it's nice to have if something goes wrong a little bit, equipment.
On revenue. Anticipate $1,000 possibly,
I would say 2 would be more appropriate, but
so we could add $2,000. We'll see a revenue.
I think it's the first line. Be surveyor.
Right.
We've got it at 6, it was gonna go down to 1. I think we could probably go 2 might be more appropriate.
So that's taking $4,000.
Who up in that first line then?
That's, but it's a highly variable depending on what we get hired to do with townships and such.
And how much you think we can take out of the gas and maintenance?
I hate to take a whole lot out in case we have, you can run up a $2,000 bill pretty quick and there we sit,
Mhm.
And
Do you have any carryover from last year? in that?
1,600, it looks like.
Take out 1,000 maybe.
We could probably take out 1,000. We've got surveyor supplies. We'll be purchasing, I believe, rebar this fall. That'll come out of that. That number will go.
Can you-
Closer to that 3,000.
It's gotta be metal rebar.
Yeah, iron.
Yeah, it's gotta be iron.
Yeah. Durable
So you can find it.
with a medical, yeah, with our magnetic.
Can't be fiberglass.
No. There's no, aside from a specific instances, there's no statutory guideline, but fiberglass is a bad idea, and rebar is pretty cheap. The section
anymore, but-
what's that?
Not anymore, but.
Well, relative to how much we use, I guess.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Highway uses what we purchase here for their control points as well. They're burning through as much as we do on that. We're sitting pretty good on section corner monuments. That won't be a big cost coming up anytime soon. They're pretty expensive. They might be 75 to $100 a piece, depending on what style they are. We got a good inventory of that. It's just what it is.
So 4,000 comes out of revenue, 1,000 comes out of the gas and maintenance. So instead of 9650, it's 6650 to the surplus. Right?
Increasing revenue by,
4,000 down to 2.
9650 is a,
yeah, so then it'd
Overage.
actually be 12,650. So we're taking away revenue.
Mhm.
right.
And only adding 1,000. Instead of-
So revenue
27.
drops from 32,962 to 28,962. Excuse me, I'm looking at the wrong number for the change, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The total then would be 209.
Most of that is-
215,019 is what it would become.
That's what the new number will be? Or, okay,
That was an increase, actually.
yeah. We're going the wrong direction.
Yeah.
But most of
Sorry,
that is wages and yeah. We have
So
5%.
you don't typically hire a summer helper anymore?
We haven't been, no,
Is that in here?
No. No,
just a zero.
it was taken out.
I would like to keep the line item, as the nature of work changes, if we get needing that in the future, it'll be important. That was always something we typically shared with Highway,
Mhm.
depending on how much
Right.
would they need to put in the ground and unskilled labor they need. And I think it's a really great way to kind of bolster getting Houston County employee or constituents and creating jobs or creating interest in our professions. It's a good opportunity for those students.
Basically, wages and all the other stuff are, that's the biggest part of this thing.
Yep.
There's very few other things to pick out.
Right, anything else for Eric?
That should take care of that.
Sorry, folks.
Mary?
So the GIS is,
Oh, yeah, GIS, I guess. We kind of forgot
That's
about
about
that.
everything, we burned through all that. That's all pretty much contractor on.
that contract.
There was some talk with the assessor's office about wanting some additional layers, but I think that's a like $600 expense on the year. So we can figure out how to squeeze that out of something. Whether that comes out of the survey side or what
A
have
portion of those expenses are paid from the recorder's compliance.
you. Okay,
That's that fund balance as well.
all right.
Take care.
Thank you.
So for the recorder's office, Mary did reduce the fees just somewhat. We had increased them for 2022 and just looking at the way it's kind of going, that maybe it would be best to lower it in certain areas. A majority of the expenses that she has are paid for with recorder's technology fund,
Yes.
technical equipment fund, or what do we call it?
Yep,
actually?
technology. Yeah, you're
Technology
right,
fund.
you're right.
So if you'll notice, like in the hardware, software maintenance in 2021, we spent 18,842. But that came from the recorder's equipment. That's why we don't necessarily budget for those items, because we know that they're gonna be paid for otherwise.
That number is our maintenance fee for our land link program. Yeah, it's a maintenance fee. And it's gonna be slightly more for 2023 that we'll come to the board at the end of December, toward the end of December, and ask for those transfers.
We amend the budget to put numbers in there so it doesn't look like it's overspent, and then we do the fund balance applied from the recorder's technology and compliance fund if appropriate.
I pretty much left things the way they were. I did increase the telephone line item because I wasn't aware in 2022 that when I got a cell phone to use for my added layer of security for accessing the internet, that was supposed to be in my budget. It wasn't. So I added that in. I reduced postage a couple $100 just because we're doing so many e-docs. Our postage, we're not using near the postage. I reduced our office supplies because it just seems like we just don't, again, we don't use the envelopes and the labels and the such things because we're not mailing so many things back, which is the majority of our supplies. I did raise the interest income a little bit just because of the current trend of we're getting more on our compliance and technology accounts. Does anyone have any questions? Or?
No, it looks all pretty much.
As Commissioner Severson stated, we're kind of in the same boat as Eric. We pretty much mostly wages and benefits, so we don't have a ton to play with. A couple of things I'll just make mention. And I haven't even talked to Carol about this yet, but I'm wondering if it's not time to consider some new fees for our land shark program, because we've had that for over 10 years and we've never increased our subscription fees.
How much is it?
There's different levels. You can get 250 images for $50. 500 images is 100 and 1,000 images is 200. It just bumps up. We have seen a definite increase of, I'm sure Andy has a technical name for these people, but I call them data miners. So we have people that last month we gave someone 9,000 images because they're looking at all our records and I don't know what they're doing with them, but so we've definitely seen an increase in that. We have a few companies that are doing a lot of that. So our land shark, our bottom line, it puts our land shark income up, but I don't know what, sometimes I think we're getting, what's happening is they're trying to sell, they're trying to sell a product to, or constituents of, if you need a deed, we'll get it for you for $100 versus having them come just directly to us. So there's some of that going on. But we haven't ever raised those, and we're getting a lot of search requests for marriage records. And many counties charge a fee for when you do the search and don't find a record, because we're spending considerable time to look for this record, and then we can't even sell them the little $9 record. So a lot of counties have fees for all certificate. They have like no for fee for no certificate of marriage found, no birth record found, no death record found. The state charges all those fees, and many counties do too, but it's just something to think about.
Something you could bring up for when we do the fees.
Yes,
fee
yes, yeah, it's
schedule.
not really this time, but I
Right,
just,
yep.
because our, yes, my income will definitely be down. We're still probably a higher document counts than prior to COVID, but we're definitely down from the last 2 years. Everybody's refinanced that. Could.
Yeah, they could, and now it's.
Yes, and now the
interest
rates are going up, so they're not, so we're just seeing mostly sales and those types of documents.
Hey, I don't have anything, I guess.
I guess if you could get those fees that other counties are charging and see how we compare, and if that's an avenue that we can look at for our fee structures when that.
Right.
we have numbers available.
I mean, right now we have a research fee.
Right.
Can't you actually just use that and say, if I don't find a document, it'll be so much?
We do that for documents, but a lot of like when I say a certificate of no marriage, a lot of that's vital search. And we just have never historically charged for that.
I almost think it falls under the same.
It could.
Umbrella.
It could.
It's a research, you're researching for a certificate and you don't
Yeah.
find it.
It could.
So if someone emails you and wants you to look for it and you don't find it, and then you send them a bill, are you ever gonna get the money?
Well, I don't think so.
Yeah, see, there's where you run into the problem,
Right.
and then you have a
Yeah.
lot on your books that.
Right, and so,
We never-
having a charge for a no record found is what people do. They actually have a paper that says, and some people need that because they're trying to get citizenship in these other countries to get dual citizenship, and there's all sorts of things like that going on, and sometimes they need the record, but sometimes they need an actual certified document stating there wasn't a record. So it's just some things of.
So you would
different things
actually
from-
have them pay before you send that to them?
We generally do, yeah. Or we tell them this is the bill, and they'll call with a credit card. We're doing a lot of credit cards now.
Mhm.
But that's about it. Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Looks like you're up.
Lot of stuff.
We get colored pages.
So for the record, we did make a nice gray tone copy for Commissioner Burns. Viking Cup in. Eric, I heard from many people yesterday.
I'm sure you did.
Ethan's best to go.
That's right.
17 days.
But it was painful. It was just ugly. It feels bad.
I usually read the paper and I didn't watch the whole game.
I watched it.
All right, you ready for us?
Mhm.
Okay, the first thing I'm gonna do is kind of give you some navigation, okay? So when the packets that you have for our department, they have a summary page that looks like this with these big, heavy, darker gray lines. Okay, that's what I'm gonna be working off of. So if you recall from last year, we kind of put that horizontal or vertical line down the middle because it divides all of the historical trend stuff that we're looking at from the stuff we're looking at in the current year and how we're coming to our budget proposal. The first horizontal line above that is all of our program division budgets. So economic assistance, public health, and social services. Those come together in the next section, which is Fund 11 or Public Health and Human Services. So when you bring all those pieces together, which is the compilation of each of these worksheets, because this page I'm talking about is a summary document, it all comes into that Fund 11 total agency budget. Below that next line is a historical context of what our levy has been. One thing I draw your attention to is in column H, there's a blue box there that says that that was the year in 2019 that we merged public health and human services. So everything to the left of that and some of that history as far as levy and fund balance is representative of just human services, not public health. Everything to the right of it is after we've merged. So you can see that green line, final levy, that's been our trend line. Below that is the trend as far as our fund balance has been. Again, with the note that everything prior to 2019 is fund balance related to human services only. If you go to the right of that vertical line, that's our current year budget and how we are coming up with a proposed budget. So if you start in column 11, it says original 22 budget. That's the budget that you approved last summer for 2022 and then finalized in December. And you can see in the levy area, there's a total need of 2,225,000. The levy was 2,018,152, leaving 7,224 unfunded. We amended that budget, or you guys amended that budget after you finished negotiations with bargaining units. And so the amount that we were able to spend went up due to those contracts. And so that unfunded amount went up to 129,000. Okay. The next column is just our year to date through 6 months and percentage of budget, that kind of information. Column Q is our work as far as a proposed budget. As you go to the area where it talks about under the first horizontal line, Fund 11, there's an item there that under the amount remaining, it says it includes 19,220. That is a figure we get from Carol that is kind of a number of bits and pieces of PIL and delinquent tax and things that are not part of the levy that you set, but there are these other local government aid and different things. Going down into the area where we talk about levy, you see that the levy before staff, so we said before staff because we have a couple of small staff adjustments we'd like to propose. Before that, the levy proposal would be 2,438,257. And then I compare it to the original budget or the original 22 levy of 2,218,000. So the increase is 220,105 for the coming year. I'd point out also that part of that is the unfunded portion from the current year that we didn't know when we were budgeting last summer. To the right, you see a blue box there. That just gives you an idea of what the gross payroll changes are in our department. When we say gross payroll changes, those are before we apply revenue to them. So let's see. Really, the story of this budget is the impact of a two-year payroll increases related to negotiated settlements. And when I say that, I want to be careful. It's not something that I'm bemoaning. I think it's important, and I think it's made us more competitive, and that's a good thing, especially in a very, very tight labor market. But that is far and away the single largest thing driving our budget. As you know with us, that you've got a summary page, and what we try to do with the summary is give you a good overview of what's going on. There's over 1,000 lines in these worksheets that deal with revenue that we generate, expenses, projected expenses, all of that. The reality is almost 2/3 of our budget is payroll, and the rest of our budget, virtually all of it is mandated. And so we try to project what those mandated costs will be based on the historical trend. And you'll see that in each of those worksheets. So the last thing I'd note is we sometimes talk about what's under the line. If we're asking for additional staffing or different things, they're not part of Carol's payroll information that we use to populate our budgets. We're asking to add 2 lead positions in our economic assistance division. That would not be an addition of 2 additional people. It would be an addition of responsibility. So the cost difference would be based on a different pay band because they would be paid as a lead and not as a line worker. Real similar to what we did several years back with leads in the social services division. The economic assistance division has grown exponentially in complexity and number of programs. And it's really important, I believe, or we as a leadership team believe as well, that we disperse some of that institutional knowledge and kind of build that knowledge across our agency. And so the other small change we're recommending is currently we have a child support officer who's a 0.95 FTE. The board has approved that position to be full-time through the end of 2022. We're recommending that that goes on as a 1.0, so that would add 0.05 FTE to our overall. The combination of all of those changes, those 2 lead positions, and that small increase to full-time after anticipated revenue would add an additional $3,061 to bottom line.
So that's after the additional revenue.
Yes. The gross cost of those changes is 12,000, I don't know, it's 12,500, something like that. In economic assistance, we get some of the best reimbursement back from the state. It's also some of the easiest to predict. It's more kind of a percentage. You do this, the state covers this percentage. It's not as much tied to some of the more exotic formulas that we have to work with. So that's what I have. I'm guessing you have a ton of questions. Heidi, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah.
One last thing I'd say is I'd bring you back to our work session where we talked about the accounting division and how we look at accounting and how public health and human services accounting works. For us, in many cases, we have to spend it in order to earn the revenue that comes in. And in the neighborhood of 2/3 of the revenue necessary to run our operation comes from state and federal third-party billing, but we have to demonstrate we have cost before we can get reimbursed. So
It doesn't fly for me at home.
No, doesn't fly for me at home either, so. I got a couple of things on my list. Try that with my wife. You know, I already bought it, so we gotta pay for it.
I cheated you guys. I got a section. I got a copy of this yesterday.
So you got to go through all this.
I went through last night.
Let's go away.
So can I ask questions?
Please.
Starting on the economic assistance budget, that turquoise or whatever color that blue is. I go down to line 44. That is office supply, 7,500. So you bring the first page, it says EA budget. Okay. Line 44 has the budget amount for the proposed budget is $7,500. Now I see where you take the direct costs and force split, it's chairs, computers, copiers. You show 23 estimate of 30,000 and 25%. So this is split between 4 different areas that you're putting the $7,500 in. When I look at the office supplies history, sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. The amended budget was $5,520. Actual through 6 months was $1,643. Is there any room to move that down? I mean, is there something major in there that could be ARPA, or is there any way to move that down?
I think that is where we're landing the technology replacements. Is that correct?
I know that's down a
No.
couple lines.
Oh, that's okay.
It's its own line. Down to.
Okay. We have been replacing chairs. Some of the chairs are pretty, kind of went through a replacement schedule so that we could upgrade some of those.
I see chairs, question mark, computers, question mark, copier, question mark. The total is $30,000. Is that can't be all chairs, or is that all chairs?
The 30,000 is a combination of things like chairs and different things, but also that's all your office supplies, your pens, paper, all of those kinds of things. Trying to think of some good examples of what that is. I know we squeezed that pretty hard last year. And
It was $5,520 last year, but thus far, 6 months into the year, you're at $1,644. I'm rounding the pennies out.
Yeah.
So I'm asking if there's room to take anything out of it.
22 and 36,021 is the agency.
yeah. We'll look at that.
Work there. Next line, the furniture and equipment EDMS. EDMS charge is $24,930 and the e-signature is $30,000. I guess the only reason I asked that is the budget last year was $59,900, we're at $29,000. Now you're down to $27,900. Is that enough?
Yeah, we're moving, that's, if you recall, we're going from that Winona County system
And we're using ARPA to pay that.
Well, there's 2 parts to it. There's the project cost for them to help stand up this new system. That's what we're using ARPA for. But there's a subscription. You have to pay a maintenance or subscription fee annually. We did that with the previous system as well.
So this is what the annual cost is going to be.
Yeah, there's a related savings in going with this new system.
I just see the expense dropped considerable, and that was the only question I had. Then the next line, that's the technical, the ARPA part,
Thank you.
the 16,762, which is an expense, but ARPA has not been shown as a revenue. So
Right.
when we do that as an ARPA, then that's 16,762 that will not be.
Correct.
All right. When we drop down, on lines 50 and 52, that's a salary issue. So I understand the salaries. The health insurance at 136, 187. The budget was 131, up from 113. So is that just a straight 5% increase, Carol?
Actually, it takes into account
how employees are participating too, so you might have somebody who added family coverage as opposed to
Alright.
single coverage, but it does encompass the 5% increase also.
Now I drop down to line 74, payment to or for recipients for burial. You've got $8,000 in the budget. Have spent $1,500 thus far this year. And left 8,000. It's the same as last year. Now, there's variations in years. But the last couple of years, I mean, in 2020, it was 13,000. 21, it was 3,500. That's a guesstimate, but can we pull out one burial?
We can, it's just, if you have them, you gotta pay.
I understand. I'm just asking if we can take one burial out and drop $1,500. Next page. Carol gets blamed for some of this stuff. On line 108, postage. You got $1,400 in the budget. Carol allocates postage by department code trend history. You're at 525 thus far this year. You are at 1,000, 1,200, 1,200, 1,200. Are we doing more stuff online or with not needing the postage, as much postage? Can we cut some postage?
Karen has mailings at your end.
Okay. Karen, you wanna come up to? I believe there's some bulk mailings that happen at different times. So
Yeah, we're also seeing some, like Mary Beth had talked about with our e-signatures, there's some work that we can do that way. We've cut, so like, there are things that we have to mail out. The biggest thing is our PMAPs, so when people are enrolled into healthcare, we've tried to cut those. We used to spend $7 to $8 on a mailing. We've really reduced what we're putting in there, so we can potentially cut, but, you know.
So I do think that some of the stuff we've done with e-signature and transferring things via online reduces that. With the PMAP that she's mentioning, it's like when you get your insurance packet, big thick thing, it was pretty beefy. And so those by rule.
I don't need a long dissertation on each line. Can we cut it? Yes or no? Then the next line, cellular communications. That's a new one. Is that a breakout from someplace else? I mean, $562 in 21, $1,116 in the budget, $639 so far, and it's bumped up to $1,600.
That's an allocation of the county cell phones that we assign.
So that's a known cost that's
Yeah.
allocated. Registration and training, $2,000. Back in 14 and 15, you were over 2,000, but it hasn't. And then in 18,
That's due to COVID, Bob. We haven't had
Yeah.
trainings, but they will. The conferences that staff go, that's how our long-term staff are trained on new things.
and they're required for continuing education credits type thing. All right, so there's no room.
And we try to be mindful. Some are still online. And we attend those as we can.
Down on line 118, sheriff. Sheriff.
That's with our cooperative agreement with child support. We contract with the county attorney and our sheriff's department because we have to have service documents served on people. COVID has affected that line at this point in time because the sheriffs weren't, and we're just starting to get back into legal actions. So, and that's something that is reimbursed as well.
So we get
the
reimbursed
state?
in the revenue someplace. For that.
Yeah, it's part of the, yeah.
Line 129, that's a tech ARPA previously purchased vehicles. It's $4,540. That's going to be an ARPA thing that we can add into revenue.
So it's have an offsetting.
Pardon?
If the board decides to
Allocated.
allocate.
But is that something we had talked about doing already? Is it something that's on that list that you gave us?
It is not.
All right. None of this is included, none of their 16,000 some odd dollars is included. Okay. Excuse me. All my questions on that page. We get into the top section. Those first lines 161 through 166, 167. What is it? It's
It's totally,
the totals of prior page.
yep.
I'm done with that section. And I'm into the green public health budget. And then when I go to line 12 in that section, that's regular salaries. Why is that down?
In the current year.
The budget was 176,630. You're at 174,224. I mean, I thought everything was all payroll, all salaries are going to be going up. Why is that down?
It's possible that the 28% allocation of the FTEs last year is now 27% FTEs, and that 1% might just be enough to make that little bit of a difference.
Well, I was thinking that wages, everything was going to go up about 5 or 5.5%, just based on the scale on the steps. Carol?
You're looking at a different staff person that is typically charged there.
So it's a new person, less cost.
Right.
Just look at payroll. I want to know why it would change. Then I run all the way down to line 47. That's another technology request broken out. So there's $6,426 on technology that we can take ARPA for. Not yet included in what we've talked about, but we can take ARPA for. Next question on that page. Next page. Line 83. $3,000 for the proposed budget. We had $1,000 in last year's budget. It's $37 thus far this year. Is $3,000 an accurate number?
We're anticipating with the flu that's coming up this fall now. So
What's it got to do with the flu?
flu is coming up.
That's, that program area is the flu program. So what you're looking at is the revenue.
So the same thing is true as far as number 85. That was $100, now it's $3,000, so that's just an increase in program.
COVID, there wasn't a lot of flu.
And everything on COVID, they didn't recognize flu. Line 128, other professional and technical fees, $2,627.
I'm sorry, say that line again.
128.
That's Joey.
So we're 2,500 budgeted. We're at 1,275 thus far. Got budgeted for this year 2,627.
That's for vector control, lacrosse encephalitis, and we contract with Joe Ritz. He does surveillance and mitigation.
And there's no recovery. Is there a recovery for that cost someplace? Or is that just a county cost?
I think that's just a county cost. I can verify that. I don't think we have a revenue to support that. It's kind of unique to us, given proximity to incidences of lacrosse encephalitis.
Back in 2017, that was $6,000.
Yeah, there was a different vendor that did it, and so he switched to, actually, Joey helped him, and so we worked with Joey, kind of identifying different hotspots and things.
Then if I drop down, the 133 line, that federal WIC, is that a given number? It says $18 per participant. Reimbursement based on actual caseload. The $56,272 grant.
So if you remember from our allocation spreadsheet from the Joint Board of Health, it's a per participant fee, but then often there's a settle up fee that comes in the end. So that revenue line is really wild. It's hard to, do we project and assume that we're gonna get that settle up or not?
I guess the only reason I question that a 65,022 budget, we're already at 70,530 for 6 months. Is that the last that we're gonna get?
For this year, we got a little bit of settlement,
All right.
3,000.
So there is no other revenue coming from. None on that page.
Had an exciting.
Oh, it's just line by line. With my paint stick. I like the paint stick. It doesn't have anything in the way. Just a question on the salaries again, being down. Is that because of new personnel again with a lower cost to the?
I think some of it is that. It's also nurses they're not landing in the middle of the pay grid. So a lot of our staff are receiving the percentage of the increase in the settlement, plus they're in the middle of the grid, so they also get a step.
Right.
In this division, we've got a number of nurses that are at the top end of that grid. So that also accounts for less growth.
But we had a $51,000 budget and now it's dropped to $43,000. So have we gotten rid of somebody?
We haven't gotten rid of people, but we're not paying, we hired a new public health educator who's making less than the previous. Our public health supervisor has been open.
And then on the next line, health insurance. We didn't have health insurance in last year's budget. Is that a mistake?
Which line?
It's the next line, 220.
We're just not allocating, right?
So on SHIP, if you have an employee that doesn't take health insurance because their spouse carries it, but then you hire an employee who takes health insurance, you're gonna see a change.
Okay, so this is the new employee that
Correct.
does take health insurance
Correct.
that we didn't have last year.
Correct.
All right. Turning the page. That page lines 3, 18, 19, 20, and 21. 1,000, 6,000, 19,000. That's all new money?
Annualizing 6 months, anticipating annualizing of the 6 months. So column N,
We didn't have any in 2022, so this is new money, this is new funding?
Well, we had it in 21 and 2020.
2020 and 2021, and then it wasn't there.
Yeah.
So is this just something that's
So-
come back?
so what we did, Bob, when we budgeted last year for the 84,116 is that is the total amount of the grant. However, if you have third-party billing, then you can't bill the grant as well. And so you can't go most likely wouldn't go over. Now you see that the 59,000 is being the grant amount. And then we went ahead and pulled in that third-party revenue. So you see the actual grant comes in at 35,573.
Yep.
But the total is coming in at 61. So we had booked the full amount of the grant, but you can't have the third-party billing double dipped. So we booked it a different way this time to reflect third-party separate from being able to go against that grant.
So that's evidence-based home visiting. When we got that program started, there was a lot of training and things we could build to the grant. But we can bill an enhanced rate, and if we bill that enhanced rate for the time that our staff are spending doing the visiting, you can't also charge the grant. So that's part of why you see the grant going down in the state of Minnesota. Kind of take that into consideration.
I dropped down to line 337, gasoline for county car. Well, $59.50 back in 2020. Now we're at $900. Just banging it up to
For
900.
evidence-based, anticipating seeing clients again.
Transfer from some other line.
No, we got started in evidence-based home visiting and then the pandemic hit. And so doing home visiting during the pandemic was largely done remotely or just, didn't happen. We weren't out driving around. Things are loosening up, so we anticipate that we'll have more miles to allocate to that program.
So you got started, that was $59.50 in 2020. Nothing 21, nothing 22, now it's $900. So
19 was 12.
It's about $75 a month or a tank of gas
we get 12.
anticipated. $75
Oh,
a
I'm
month.
wrong on that. Wrong line.
Okay.
It's just us anticipating that they're going to be traveling now as there's less restriction.
It's not a huge earth-shaking amount.
I don't have a ruler, Bob, so.
You gotta get a people thing too.
All right, next page. We've already talked about payroll. I understand now why that's changed. Why it's changed. I don't have any other questions on that page. I don't have a question on the last page. So next session is Social Security budget trends, SS budget trends,
Social services.
social services. Yeah, that's it, security. Okay. So that line 6, that's the county levy that you're proposing, so it's not plugged in.
Correct.
On line 22, 168,000 is a reduction in that revenue. So that's just a known amount?
Is that
We had a budget 175, now it's down to 168. So it's
So we look at trend history on that and we look at the database reimbursement. And so we are doing it off of our trend history for our cost pool.
And the trends have been going down for revenue.
It has been a little bit. for
I've
the
been reading
total.
that for other counties as well.
Correct. So our cost pool has been increasing a little, but the rate has been decreasing and it results in a little less revenue in this bucket.
so the same thing is true on line 24
Correct,
and line 26.
correct.
Then how come on line 27, allocation vulnerable children and adult state? We don't have anything that thus far,
It's receded fully in July.
so it's a one-time deal.
Correct.
Sliding down, 56, training and registration. So that's gonna be that's an increase for training, just because
Similar
do
to.
we need that much training?
Yes, I mean, similar to Karen's, right now we have two CP staff going to core training. Core through COVID was all online. They're back in person. We have one going to Duluth and one going to Marshall. Because those are the closest at this time for them to go to.
Because they don't offer it online.
Correct. It is mandatory that it be online for all new child protection staff. I mean, be in person.
In person.
In person, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, in
Okay.
person for all new child protection staff. There are 2 days that are half days that are online. Everything else is face to face. How it was before.
And that's the
pandemic.
same thing with the training non-staff expense. What is a non-staff? Training of non-staff. I mean, who are we
Does it say
training?
that?
Parents, it looks like,
57.
parents training.
Oh,
Because-
parents.
So we have to do training for
Foster
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 care.
care. Okay,
Foster
but is that
That-
locally done or,
That's us offering them a service, yes.
and this is new? I mean, had $1,000 budget last year, didn't spend any.
Right, if you go back a few years, you can see that we have a few entries, again, before the pandemic, 19 and 18. 18 is the first year we kind of put it in the budget. We used it those 2 years and then we went into the pandemic.
It's 23, 25.
Yep, and 18.
And I dropped down to 69 line travel. This is based on the fact that they're gonna be going to class, so that's the cost of those.
Going to class and being, the majority of my staff still saw clients face to face, but there are some that were virtual, but now almost 99.9% of our visits should be face to face. So we're traveling to see those individuals.
Line 77, that's the technology request. The breakdown, another $3,602 that we could allocate to our. Turning the page.
How much was that other figure that?
Total is gonna be 16,000.
Already did the math.
Oh, when I get to the next page, that CADI grant state 30,000. I'm on 90.
Okay.
So that 30,000. And then there's another CADI grant on line 106. So it's a $60,000 grant. You've broken it down into two different places.
It's half state, half federal.
Okay,
Yeah,
50% state,
federal.
50% federal. And that's offset with expenses someplace down the line.
Payroll.
Payroll.
All payroll, okay. And the child protection grant on 98. Got 75,000, is that another July thing? That we get
Yeah.
the 75,000?
So any of these pink ones that you see in revenue, those are all allocated figures. The state just takes a number and we find that out in the summer each year.
Right, but
It has,
you don't collect it until July.
correct,
All right.
maybe August. on that one.
Whenever the state feels like it. And then on line 122, recoveries QuickBooks. But so we had a $10,000 budget. We're at $3,390. And now we're at $7,000. Is this QuickBooks collects revenue for us or what?
Those are recoveries for certain services where we have a sliding fee scale, parental fees or fees we recover for detox or
Well,
things
this
like that.
is parental fees, this one,
Parental fees, okay.
and annualizing where we're at 6 months.
See, we're always talking about trends and how things are going. If I look at the history, 26, 14, 17, 13, 14, 18, 12, 12, 10, and now we're dropping down to 7. Trends, I can see dropping, but we're dropping faster than the trend line.
We take into account current caseload.
Okay.
So there's.
You make it
current
fit the
cases.
way you want to. Current caseload trend is one thing, otherwise the expenses trends are another thing. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Never mind.
Well, for that, these are the cases that we're currently collecting on.
Right.
So trying to project those.
But it's a drop in revenue. What is on line 143? Adaptive aids and equipment, MA waiver. So we didn't have anything budgeted. We spent $6,840 actually in 22. So you got a $5,000 expenditure. But well, it's either it's on or it's off as far
Right,
as
that's a money in, money out. So this is part of the budget that is staying in my budget here, but it actually is the waivered staff of our public health. So if they have an individual on the waiver who needs a ramp added to their home because their mobility has changed, the ramp is put on the home and then the waiver pays us back for the pass-through of that payment of the ramp. So we are not paying for that. It goes through our books and then we get paid back. So it's,
So if it changes, if the dollar amount changes, the revenue, the reimbursement's gonna change. I mean, one
Right.
hand washes it.
right, yes, yep.
And is that kind of the same scenario with, if I go down to lines 158, 59, 60, and 161, all the North Star and the foster care, those dollars, is that, I mean, is that a one-time deal that we get reimbursed or?
We don't get reimbursed 100% there. Like we do with the debt to aids as a waiver.
So
We do not get.
These are foster care.
And it depends on
Depends
whether
on
it's
caseload.
4E or not 4E.
right. But I just see where we have budgeted, the 22 budget and the 23 budgets are 5,000, 5,000, 12,000, went to 5,000, 3,500, went to 5,000, 55,000, went to 40,000. But so far, we haven't had any actuals, hardly any actuals in 22. So is that all paid late or?
Just do your best to anticipate that there could be still some North Star and the kinship assistance, depending on their about 5 quarters behind in some of that stuff. But when we have any pending revenue there, when they
Mhm.
pay those, we're cash basis. So when they reconcile, so
But if I look at
Okay.
just looking at North Star 158,
mhm,
there's nothing back in early years. Then in 2020, it's 1992, then 2697. Now we've got nothing again, but we're leaving $5,000 in the expenses. Why? Why that high?
Some of it may be related to number of kids.
North Star
We are
Care.
gonna hear you.
There's new kids that have gone into North Star Care, so there's certain criteria for that funding source that has to get met. And it's new children that will be receiving.
So we know there's new children that are going in.
If it's adoption assistance, yeah, for the adoption assistance and kinship, yes, for kinship, for sure there are.
And that is gonna look different every year depending on what our caseload is and what their qualifications are.
Sure. But then I go to the next line, another North Star, this is adoption assistance instead of kinship assistance, where we had 12,000, we've dropped down to 5,000. There was in 21, $6,000, 20 was $4,000. We dropped to 12,000 to 5,000, but there's been zero so far in 22. So we know there's as well as adoptions, we know that that's going up. This is one of those ones where we talk trends. Suddenly there's nothing there, but the trend is that we are raising it up. Then the foster care, those two lines, it's 3,500 went to 5,000, we're at zero. Back in the early, the 14, 15, and 16 years, we had quite a bit. Then it dropped off to nothing. Are we overstating that one as far as the expense going to 5,000? I'm looking for overstatement on what we can drop.
The thing is that going into 2023, we don't know what children will be in placement. So we don't know if they'll be in treatment foster care. We don't know if they're in treatment foster care, if they'll be 4E eligible or not 4E eligible. So we put something in each line because it gives us something there, because there are going to be kids in placement, but we won't know until that child is placed what their eligibility is and what line item we can bill them under.
So then the other question is, are these expenses, is there a washing of the hands? I mean, do we get reimbursed someplace for these?
Not fully.
So do
We
you
get
see
some
others? There's
4E.
2 lines for each one of these.
Yeah.
You have treatment foster care 4E. And so The 4E gets a higher reimbursement than the non-4E.
So up in the revenues, there is reimbursement allocated because of this.
For the 4E higher than the non,
So if we lower these, we're gonna lower revenue someplace
correct.
to offset.
Is the trend for that lowering too? For
Trend for-
reimbursement,
For the revenue.
for foster care?
I think we need to do some analysis on that.
I think so too.
As far as our cost pool and time study and some of those formula revenues, those are.
I don't think we're seeing the same correlation in the decrease in revenue that we are in the reimbursement, but
Right.
to fully.
I'd wanna evaluate that specific thing to see what that trend has been over time.
Okay, I was just curious.
The only thing I look at is when we got the zeros, when we got a 2022 budget allocation, budgeted amount. And 2022 has a lot of zeros there. And we still leave the 5,000s and the 40,000.
I would just point out, Bob, that the total cost center expense is 497 to 21 page, and for 22, we spent 524,000, so we brought the cost center down.
Did lower it.
The total cost center's expense
Where
total,
are you talking? On
the
the
next page,
177.
we brought the total cost center down. So line by line, it may ebb and flow, but as a total,
Went from 524 to 497.
correct.
Placement.
And that's fine, but I'm just saying, is there more that we can take off of there? You guys got a 10% increase.
On the
Everybody's-
overall.
Overall. And I'm just looking for ways to cut that down, because
Well, the ARPA will help somewhat.
Some
a
people-
percent,
Percentage of that's it.
And
We
a
can,
lot of that is salary.
we can understate those expenses, we can overstate revenue. But if we get those kids in, we have to serve them, and this is an area of the budget with child placement that is pretty wild. If a child has a really unique need, we have to pay to do the treatment and support that child's needs. And so cutting this beyond where we've seen it kind of be is, it gives us a bit of pause. Plus, I think the thing, Bethany, you can chime in on this too, but our placements, we kind of saw a dip through the pandemic and they're beginning to rebound. I think we anticipated that. It isn't that the pandemic ended up with nobody having child protection issues anymore. It's just that we weren't seeing them. School was less in person. Those types of things were typically, those kinds of cases come to light. So we're anticipating increase there as well. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
Very volatile line item. I mean, if a placement happens tomorrow and the family has one child, that's different than if the placement happens tomorrow and there's 6 children in that family. So instead of paying for one, we're paying for 6. And we don't, it just, it's a number that you can't predict.
I'd also like to say the revenue line on 125 on the previous page. We budgeted revenue of 555,000 versus 521. So we lowered expenditures and then we increased revenue. So the cost center as a whole has been netted to do better. The 23's budget.
looking to lower expenses and increase revenues more. To eliminate that
Increased
10%.
revenue is the toughie though. That's,
You aren't gonna be
that's
able to do
the
it.
disturbing trend in my eyes is that the revenue isn't coming in there.
Another
With a
page.
state that has $9 billion for water.
When we flip to the next page for a point of contention is lines 165, 66, 67, 68, and 69. Again, look at I see in earlier years, it's low, then in the 19 and 20, it went way up. 21, COVID went way down, $25,000, zero. We left it at 25,000. The next line was 25,000. We've spent already 24.6, 6 months through the year, but we left it at 25. So it seems to me that, you know, one might be overstated, one might be understated based on the last couple of years of history. Then you go to $80,000 on that 168 correctional facilities 4E was 80,000. We spent 15,000 and it's at 60,000. Some years it's in the 120s, some years it's, I understand that it's a guess. You don't know. All I'm looking at is there any place that we can cut some expenses in order to reduce that percentage?
Well, it went from 80,000 to 60,000 in that 4E.
Yeah.
Right. And we spent 15 so far. The next one is 40,000, went from 50 to 40 and we spent 1,900. I understand that you don't know from day to day. Stuff comes up, but
These as well are driven by the cases that we have. And kind of an aberration through the pandemic that seems like the number of cases we're dealing with was artificially suppressed. Again, these are numbers that you try to take a shot at and be conservative. We don't want to pad the budget, but we also don't want to get caught short. And historically, we've had expenses in these areas, and you know, we're responsible for those. There's associated revenue with these lines as well.
that's right. So then line 172, that extended FC supervised independent living. You doubled that.
Yep, because we went from one child to two. That is based on the age that they're gonna turn in the calendar year of 2023. So we have somebody going into that next age level. So this year we only had one person. Next year we'll have two.
So that's a new one come out.
Correct.
And they're in there all year. There's not a,
Until they age out.
What
But,
age is that?
I mean,
18?
I don't have their names written down here,
I don't
so,
know.
or their dates. So, I mean, if they're a December birthday, yep, we're gonna pay all year, but if they're a February birthday, they're gonna drop off after February, so it's based on their. But if they're just entering, they're for sure gonna be there all the year because it's between 18 to 21 years, so if they're just entering that, they'll
and
stay there.
that's the situation. Once you got them, you never lose them.
It depends on if they become an adoption case. If they become an adoption case, they wouldn't age out into the foster care 18 to 21 years. It depends on the situation.
All right, moving down the line to 210. And transportation. So we're at $3,000. Spent $800. We're blaming that on COVID, so we're gonna start doing more transportation.
And so Bob, this is the CSP grant.
Yep.
We're able to, we have 10%. So if you go down to line 228, if we spend 86,119, we get 77,507 back. And so these are eligible expenses. So we have the pink line up on line 201 is the revenue, 77,507. The line that does not have an eligibility is line 223. That is a county dollar cost when there's a placement there. The difference would be payroll between what's left in expenditures after the 75,000 and the revenue of 77,507.
So that's the one hand washes the other. So and then if we drop down to 212, adult mental health crisis service.
That entire cost center is CSP. That entire,
All
all
of
those
it.
costs. So if you take the 132,704 cost for that cost center of adult mental health on line 228,
Yeah,
you back out the 75,000 of county dollar on line 223.
Yeah.
The difference is covered by that CSP grant of 77,507 above.
Okay.
And the difference that you don't see reflected there is payroll.
so all of these are one hand washes the other.
Correct, all of them.
It's easier just to say that. Flipping the page. This is just from my understanding, the one hand washes the other. 258 and 259 are offset by 280 and 281. I mean, the 1100 and the 551 and 552 and the 13,000 and the 6520 and 6521. I mean, that's the wash. Those big ones.
Yes, correct.
Wash. Then when I go down to residential treatment, 278, and the next one, 279 residential treatment 4E. That I see where you're dropping. But are those a wash from up above in the revenue someplace?
Not a wash completely. It's back to that 4E. There's a portion of 4E that comes in on the 4E line. We'll have some movement in that line at the end of the year. We know somebody leaving a placement, so that's why we accounted for it differently in 2023. Yes.
Same thing is if I go down to 370, that extended support employment, 85% of $44.
Would you
For
go to? Sorry.
Woodland budget,
Where are you at?
I'm on 310. So Woodland budget is 61,974 at 85%.
Woodlands, we are working with Woodland. Woodland provides employment training services to people with
Right.
primarily developmental disabilities. We've been working with them to demonstrate what their costs are. Kind of our stance is we shouldn't expect a nonprofit to provide a service to county residents at a loss. But we've been working with them for probably 3 years to say, show us your budgets, show us your costs. They're making some changes to their fee structure, and we've spent quite a bit of time with them and feel comfortable that they're showing us what their costs are. And so you see an increase in Woodland. That'll come to you as a contract later this fall, presumably, but we're building the budget for that increase now. A lot of that increase is driven by a lot of the same things that are driving some of our increases. They have to pay staff, there's inflation, different things like that. But I felt uncomfortable just saying, well, hey, we need more money, so let's give it to them. Show us your costs so that we have a responsible approach to that. One other thing I'd say about Woodland is it's one of the rare things that is county only. That's a levy only expenditure. Virtually everything else is these odd and at times very complicated cost shares for that employment training service. That's a county levy expenditure.
On the next page, there's another Woodland line. That's the other 15% of
Yeah,
the
that's the other
61,974. Being that's total county expenditure. I mean, provide a good service. It's just the cost aspect of it. Dropping down to the last line there, 343, that's 75,000. There's a revenue to offset that. It's all county. And so there's no recovery of any of that guardianship and service.
What I'll say is that we pay a portion and the consumer pays a portion. So if our rate is $120 a month that we pay the guardian, financial helps determine what portion the consumer pays. And if they pay $100, we pay $20. So again, it varies on the person and what their eligibility is on what portion that we pay of their fee each month. We don't pay all of it 100%, but the portion that we do pay is not reimbursed.
And there's no, you're looking at, I mean, we're at 33,000 through half the year. Do we know we have more coming, or there's
What we know,
people
what is,
die, people come on?
yep, but what has changed for us is that for many years, we had individuals within the community that provided our contract service for guardianships.
Yeah.
Some of them have passed, some of them have decided to retire. And we don't have the same number coming in to take over than are leaving. And so we have needed to go with more of an agency to provide that, and agencies charge more money than individuals.
Where's this agency?
There's a handful of them. Catholic Charities is an example. Lutheran Social Services is another example. TRSI out of Mazeppa, Minnesota we have a contract with them. So, I mean, we've also had to search for people to take on some of our clients too, because they already are assisting other counties. So it's been difficult, but the change is going from private individuals to agencies.
That's a disturbing change too.
Yes.
I think that work is becoming more complicated too. It's
Well,
not
that's-
uncommon for us to have problems in court.
Regulation there too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's why the private people don't want to get involved
Correct.
anymore.
But we're obligated to provide the service. That's a court ordered
It's a
guardianship.
court order guardianship, and we pay for the individuals that are considered indigent, and indigent is eligible for MA is the definition that we've used.
So
Then
not
drop-
everybody who has a guardianship
Do we pay for?
do we pay for,
Correct.
just those who are MA eligible.
And 356, adaptive aids, is that MA waiver? That's just going up?
Yep, well, that's just like the caddy ramp that we talked about. It depends on who needs what service, and then if we're the pass-through, we pay it, and then waiver reimburses. So most of that, again, is money in, money out.
That's where you'll see odd trends. We may have a very unique need with a client that you don't typically see every year. So, there you see that we're way over budget in the current year, but that's because there's some actual expenditures that we didn't anticipate.
Then I go down to revenues, 370, 71, and 72, and then 378, 79, and 80. And they're always duplicated, but why is that broken down into two? It's 18 and 18, 4 and 4, 4 and 4.
Because paying on those programs is federal and state shared 50/50.
So half is federal, half is state.
Correct.
And then the medical one on line 387.
It's third-party insurance.
And granted, it's a revenue, but do we know I mean, I look at $38,000 that we've received, had a $65,000 budget, you bumped it to 80,000. Do we know what's going up to that? Or is that overstated revenue?
This is the waiver. This isn't my area, sorry.
I think some of this is related to the vendors that are providing that service, be it Medica, the Blues, UCare.
It just seems to be a revenue that's,
It's coming up close to 40 at 6 months, and so we went to 80.
okay.
Which is probably similar to adult mental health and children's mental health, is that sometimes there's variation and movement between who our provider is. So like this year I'm on UCare, and then next year I'm on Medica, so that number is gonna fluctuate because it's gonna
Changing,
depend on
yeah.
where they're at.
My last question to you. With regard to the state, the way they do things, receiving services from the county and see if anybody should be taken off.
We do that on a regular basis, so, and there are a variety of different services, so if you're receiving financial assistance, there's a routine basis that you have to reapply and re-qualify.
Have they changed that process or been more restrictive on people?
They've increased
Through
it. haven't
through
they?
the COVID, through the pandemic, a lot of those financial assistance programs have been more generous.
Right.
And once we get to the end of the public health emergency, there's going to be a lot of changes going back over the last 2-3 years, especially in healthcare, but also looking at food, SNAP. So other programs like people who are eligible for waivers services, those we evaluate on a regular basis as well, because their needs change over time. Some people maybe get a little better, some people get older and have greater needs, or whatever condition they have progresses. So that's what case management does, is it evaluates what their needs are and make sure that what we're providing is meeting their needs. That, it's kind of broad answer, but the programs themselves are built in to evaluate over time. One exception I'd say would be especially healthcare, MA and SNAP, food support, have kind of been frozen at this point through the pandemic. And that's a big part of what Karen and her group are going to be kind of unraveling over the next many months.
And then with regard to services, we have to provide. You can't look at a program and say we don't want to do that.
Actually, every program that we provide has a mandate that we have, that, you know, we're doing it, and almost all of the things we do are a cost share. So, and that's where what Eric was saying is, it seems in the complexity of all of these formulas, just over time, we're seeing a slow erosion of that state share and an increase of our share. But virtually all of the services.
Although our share is going up, we don't have the option of saying, I'm not going to do this one anymore.
It'd be nice.
Yeah.
Every single program you have is.
Not every single program, but virtually all of them. So two that I can think of, the living program that we talked about. Also, we do transportation, and the way the state sets it up is, say I'm a volunteer driver and they're gonna compensate me for my mileage. So somebody who needs to get to a healthcare appointment at a clinic or somewhere, I'm gonna get in my car and drive and pick them up. Well, I'm unloaded as I drive from wherever I start to pick them up and bring them there, bring them back to where they are, and then I drive back. Those unloaded miles are not covered by the state. But we work with SEMCAC in providing those volunteer services, and it becomes really, really difficult to recruit volunteers if, you know, in the neighborhood of half of their miles are unloaded and they're not getting reimbursed for them. So we do cover those, and many counties do. Those are two that come to mind that are not, it's a county paid.
I was just reading this morning that Wadena County, their budget for human services went up 28%.
You know, I'd be interested to know what's driving that. Generally, when you see those kinds of increases, they're driven by changes in negotiated labor agreement. And maybe they've been kind of flat over a period of time.
I think that's what a major portion of that was.
Yeah.
I'm not asking any more questions.
Anybody else got any more questions for me?
What did you say, the ARPA?
16,000. It's a little over 60.
So
actually, the ARPA, or the things that we've spread across different places. When we talked with Carol, we were reflecting the expense of its computer replacement and monitor replacement, things like that. The total that we were
Excuse me,
reflecting.
31,000.
I was just gonna say,
What was it?
Well, that
31,
includes what I
330.
spent this year.
Pardon?
No,
For next year, it's
No, 31.
31,330 next year.
Just this much.
or just.
Not 16.
Oh, no, you
Just
originally
one
said
line
30.
item.
That's,
Yep.
and that's.
Sorry.
Yep.
So ARPA, if you choose to fund those, what we tried to put into that is hardware, things that will last for a period of time. And because of how we got into certain technology, we kind of didn't get into it of one computer at a time. We tend to have big expenses as they age out. So finding ways that we can even that replacement cost over time. ARPA would help us with that, and in this budget, it would reduce it by $31,330. think I sent a copy of this to you guys also in an email. And it just shows you the different cost centers where that ARPA lands. And there's two things. One would be the 2023, which is 31,330. And then there's also, we had a copier that we were planning in 2023. But there was a similar copier that died, and Andy was able to find replacements for those because he couldn't fix the one that died. They don't have parts for it anymore. And what we were projecting at like 10 to 12,000, he was able to get for 6,000. So we purchased it in 2022.
I'll have to say that you guys know your budget. Didn't get you stumped anyway.
We got a couple of things we got to go back and look at.
Right.
Some revenue things. Bob had some good questions, so we'll get back to you on those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we'll do you, Brian, next.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Which one's next?
Can't sit there, you gotta come up here.
So what pages of that? This is
That's 271 starts at.
71, I think.
71 is the 71 to 78. You doing, Sheila?
Too long.
Yeah.
Any major expenditures in your list?
Yeah, so if I wanted to summarize your budget for this year, so last year we had some ARPA money, some other fund balance, some other stuff on there. If we took that out, our increase from last year is essentially $109,746. So out of that, we have a bunch of increases in material expenses. Our material prices went up 15 to some areas 67% on some items. Hours went up. Then we have some reductions on equipment purchases. So this next year on equipment, we have a plow truck in the budget and one a front end loader along with a few vehicles. And the vehicles actually we're going to be get more money back for vehicle sales than we have for the actually it's a backhoe loader and stuff. But the vehicle sales, we get more money back in the sale than what we spend on leases. So that actually benefits us that way as far as the budget is concerned. So so I can kind of go through and kind of recap individual lines that made the major jumps, but that's essentially what it is. It's the increases in material is the primary expenses along with labor.
so material for construction
Yep, so
and maintenance or?
yeah, so most of it goes onto the maintenance. So they're really the ones that drive our budget, pretty much falls within the 302 highway maintenance category and the 304 category. Those are the ones, and that's the equipment maintenance. The 303 category, which is the highway construction, a lot of those expenses are reimbursed back through our projects and stuff. So you know, there's some little bit of training and fuel and stuff within that that don't get reimbursed. A lot of the other costs within 303 gets reimbursed. 301 category kind of has some of our building costs along with just a couple of us employees within that. So there's just some operational expenses of buildings within that. If you wanted to jump to any category, I recommend jumping to 302, the highway maintenance category.
So starting with that, on the road supplies.
Yep.
Bumping up to 838. You taking the annual road supplies and just looking at what cost changes are?
Yep, so road supplies, a lot of this is the increases in material costs. So if I look at the change from 2022 to 2023, we have salt going up 20,000, 10% over our 22 cost. We have, and I'll just mention the big items, some maintenance rock, and ice control rock. Overall the rock quantities went up by 20,000, which is about a 15% increase. Culverts went up 20,000. That's a 50% increase, but the prices of culverts have really skyrocketed. Plus, we expect to have a lot of pipe replacement next year in advance of a future repaving job. We had a $20,000 increase on bituminous patching and stuff, and that's associated with culvert replacements. And then we have big jump from 100,000 to 150,000 in bridge supplies, which is our item for doing bridge maintenance work. So each year when we put together a list of what maintenance we want to have on bridges, usually end up coming with $150,000 plus worth of work. We cut it down. We try to keep within our budget, and that's been at about 100,000. Actually, that's 100,000 when it came to the county 14 years ago. So we haven't increased that. Just with how the cost of increasing the backlog of bridge maintenance, we feel now is be a time to get that to increase. If we actually had to, we could keep that down at 100,000 or 125 or something a little bit less. But at some point, we do have some pretty expensive bridge maintenance items that we want to get taken care of. So those items account for the vast majority of the increase within the road supplies budget.
Where does fuel costs fit in?
Fuel costs have their own line items.
It's under 304, under diesel and gas.
Number 10 or?
It's gonna be, under 304, 63, 65, 63, and 65, 62.
So for gas, we had 20,000 in our 2022 budget. We have 22,000 in our 2023 budget. Halfway through this year, we're at 11,400. So gas prices, we usually spend the most on that during the summer months. So we figured we're on trend for 23,000 or more this year. But hopefully the gas price will go back down, so we don't want to jump that up too much. Diesel fuel, we budgeted 120,000 last year and next year, so we did not increase that price. We're a little over half this year. Diesel costs usually shoot up in the winter months with plowing. So again, we might be a little bit under budget on diesel as well for what we submitted, but we didn't think it was significant enough to jump that price up and hope the cost goes back down.
We also had a pretty mild winter as well.
It wasn't as much snow plowing done.
How many gallons of chloride did you buy this year?
Road
Chloride,
supplies,
yeah,
right here.
so
That's the other one that I gave you.
yeah,
recently.
so is this the gallons on this Sheila, or is
Yeah.
it actual dollars? So
This is dollars.
yeah, that's dollars, so I don't have the actual gallons, but it was about $1 a gallon, so.
No, that is gallons.
This gallon, so
So where are we at? What's that on a 30?
No, that's buried under road supplies, so.
Okay,
yeah, so gallons of chloride, about 52,000 gallons worth of chloride. Out of that though, about 40%, a little under 40% is county and the remainder is township. So we get reimbursed back from the township on theirs, that expense. That expense reimbursement comes back both for the chloride and the application.
So they're charging for some of our chloride half price or something, like the other townships do.
I guess that'll be up to the board, but I think it's, you know, I don't know how, I guess we could get a list and that we put down in front of and service, how do you add it? Bill,
Send the bill.
money,
If they have. Or so many gallons, whatever they use. So we do in a township. Get 150 gallons, you pay for 150 gallons, township pays 50. So we end up paying probably 125 out of my pocket. The neighbor behind me lives on the county road, he gets it for nothing.
it's for nothing, but he's on a,
Can we start something for this, all right? Do we have to give it away?
I don't believe that there's anything that requires us to give it away. I don't know of any counties that do charge for it on the county system. You know, we can have the argument, some county roads are paved, some are gravel in the township system. Gravel are all seal coated. I don't think there's anything that prohibits us from charging. And there is some expense of billing and
Well,
collecting.
we're running a truck around,
Correct.
putting the fuel in the truck, and we got a guy driving.
Yep, there's absolutely expenses.
So we got expenses, so I think we should at least cover our expenses. I mean, I'm sorry, but I don't think we should give it all away, man. We're gonna tell everybody else in the county, we're gonna raise your taxes because we're gonna give away chloride again.
Do other counties charge for it?
I don't know of a single one that charges, but doesn't mean we can't.
The first.
So what's the net effect?
Pardon?
So what's their increase percentage?
Oh, it's on,
Right.
Three different, we have maintenance, administration, and construction.
so it's on this, it's on this one?
I don't have that one. I'm just asking what the net effect is.
31.88%.
31.88 if you did not include ARPA and fund balance and stuff that was used this year to balance our budget. If we did the same ARPA and fund balance plan, everything that was done this year, the same next year as this year, then it's 4.04%. It's kind of always the difficult part to balance the budget one year with special funds, and then the next year, if you don't use those same funds, it.
Eventually it's gonna catch up to us.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But if we can't have 31%, that's just.
I'm a little confused, so it's 31%, but then that's not including, so why is it?
Yeah, so
So why
last,
is it 31%, but we're not including the ARPA? Are you just finding more projects to do?
so last year, there was $566,000 worth of ARPA, the ARPA fund balance, Carissa, whatever those funds were.
Yeah, we just had it under fund balance applied, so I don't know what we used that. We used fund balance to balance the budget last year.
Right.
Now you don't have that money. So without that revenue, that's the 31% increase.
So the fund balance is no longer any left? I thought we had.
Well,
Yeah.
there's
There's-
fund
there's-
balance.
Four
left.
point
It's just
four.
whether you're going to apply it to a specific year,
Okay,
you know.
so what is the fund balance? 4.1 million?
4.4.
And now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I probably am, but that's because we took the $3 million bond out for the highway shop. We didn't use all of our,
That's
Yeah,
not
correct.
in-
Before we built our building, so the fund balance has risen over time. And it got up to about $7-8 million. So our new
I thought it
building
was
had.
5.8 or 5.7 that was available.
Because
That
we
is
left-
right.
Right.
That is
Because,
right.
you know,
Is-
you keep part of it, the 50% of the current year levy. So looking at those and different projects that may have
Yes.
lapsed over from year to year.
Restricted funds that we can't
Restricted
spend.
funds.
Okay,
So it was, 5.8.
5.8,
Yeah,
something like that.
Somewhere in that ballpark, yeah.
But we used 3 million of bond money to go
Right,
towards that, so there should be 2.8
But then, you know, it increased again.
to now it's 4.1.
Yes.
Mhm.
Restricted.
Unrestricted.
So we could use that.
Right. You could add another one of those fund balance applied because you want to use some of that.
Okay,
And then that would bring your revenue up, even though it's kind of an imaginary revenue, but for the budget purposes.
It's like taking it out of your savings
Yeah.
account.
right.
You just can't, and I would say yes, you just can't lower it enough to where we can't have a cash flow, but
Mhm.
there is money available there, but then you also mentioned
Well,
something,
yeah,
using that somewhere
Yeah,
else
so,
as
so
well.
that,
so-
that fund balance, so yeah, so we're at the point now where we don't need to think about saving that fund balance to help pay for a highway bill. So, you know, what is the wish of the board for that fund balance? So there, it's more than what we need, so it can be used, you know, spent down some through slowly through the levy process, or can add in a project of some type or multiple projects to spend it that way to have some other road improvements. So it's just on the wish of the board of how you want to utilize that fund balance, but it is available.
So we can draw out of there to help our levy a little?
We can, the only other thing you have to consider too, is that with the construction, because we're paying off that highway bond with our construction, you're doing a principal payment out of our construction dollars. We don't have that 175,000 or
that-
whatever that payment
Yep,
is.
yep, so now
But the wheelage tax is going,
wheels
where
taxes,
that
Yeah.
goes into the what? The
Yeah. That-
general revenue?
No, that's
No,
in our
it's-
budget as
it's in
well.
highway.
So
Okay.
that is there to offset that, yes.
Right.
Yes.
So what would be a comfortable figure that we could use?
in the long term, I would say you could probably cut it in half. I mean, you could probably get down to a 2 million.
That's what I was gonna say too. The only thing is that once, you keep doing this, eventually
know,
it might
I
catch
know.
up, where
Here's my question. Carol, you gave us the ARPA total amount and what we've allocated, possibly what we have allocated, and what we paid. Up there in the highway department, we got highway projects of $526,234. That was possible allocation for this year, for the
500
2023.
554?
That's the 2022.
that sounds like their number.
Oh, you're looking up here, Bob.
Just,
I was looking at this here, is the construction is
like the
554
number that's up.
proposed.
For this current year.
Right. This is the 2022 amount.
Where do you see 554?
Yeah, she's 6 in there, what it was.
Oh.
So 120 in the 4.
So the 576,234 is this year, 22. We don't have anything allocated or proposed
Right.
for 23.
Right. I didn't, like human services, or road and bridge, looking at some of it. I didn't add any of this to this, so you know what your line is. Here's what's available after the ones that have been officially allocated. That middle number down there.
No. Where's-
That's what's available after what we've allocated.
That was underneath your sheet that had all the people who were going to be here today.
this one right here.
You only have one side on yours and everyone else is double sided, is that?
I don't have the sheet in front of me probably. Oh, sorry.
Underwear.
Okay. Thank you, Carol. Jeez.
Anyway. So we got 1,140,000 left to spend, and we already got the 500 out of here for the.
The 1,140,098 is what's been allocated and paid.
Okay,
So we haven't paid the 500 yet.
1,054,000. No,
Yeah, 1,054,726 is
paid.
paid,
Yep.
There's
but
11.
we've allocated 1,140,098.
So there's only 741 left.
Let's look at this. Let me look at this.
Now I'm really nervous. We're down to 741.
So we get 3.6 million. That's up there. So from what was possible allocations, that was 2,870,000. So from possible allocations, there's the 741 left. Okay. So if we look at what has actually been allocated by the board, that's the 2,472,734, leaving a balance of 1,140,098.
Okay.
But what we haven't paid everything for that. So that's the difference between the 1.1 and the 1.054. Maybe just disregard that last column. That's maybe more for just me. Might be easier that way. You want to look at what you've allocated and what's left. And what's left is the 1.140098. With no allocations to the 2023 budget.
Now,
Just about 700.
like that new bathroom we're working on, we allocated money for that.
In 2022.
We haven't paid for that, but that's been allocated. correct?
88 restrooms, $80,000.
So that's in this figure.
That's in there.
It's all in there.
It's in there. The parking lot,
That's not in there.
that's not in there because
And that
we
was
don't have plans.
$300,000.
We don't have, yeah. That's shown in the possible allocations,
Yeah, I don't.
but until we get plans and get
It's
numbers.
being worked on.
we just talked about 31,000 for Health and Human Services, public health, ARPA.
ARPA, the $31,000 that we just talked about with John is not in any of this.
No,
No,
All right, because it just drops us down to 700,000 that is unallocated.
mhm.
So we either take money out of the 4.4, or we
You do a little
subsidize some
both.
more of it
You
with,
do a little both.
with both, yeah.
Let's do a little
Mhm.
both,
Yeah.
make more sense.
I guess there are, the other uses that we really haven't touched on. We've kind of just been using it for our own, but there was essential worker pay, the childcare, broadband, housing, townships for ditching and culverts, and they're kind of listed down here, discussions that have happened.
So on the budget levy preliminary, road and bridge it's a 675,000. Increase.
Right, because that 500,000 is in the 2022 budget to.
Yep.
$600,000 increase, which equates to 31%.
33,
33%.
31, 31, 38, yep.
So it's $20,000 per percent. Right? So we want to get it down to 5% increase from 31%. 26% down at $20,000 a percent. $522,000 we gotta cut out of the budget. Right?
I'm looking at them. Well, you have to cut-
Is there 526,000 we can cut out of there?
You have, you know, you can.
Did you
look at it
know
as
that?
cutting
You're
it
the
out.
computer, right?
Well, let's, we can cut the salt
Well,
in
let's not
half.
just all speak up
and,
at once here.
Well, you raise a point. Can we reduce the salt by
Mhm.
some?
Well, I mean,
You can do anything.
Well, didn't you buy salt? Didn't you have leftover salt from last year?
so right now our salt.
You kept that contract, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
we did.
so we, we're sitting good for salt right now, but our salt budget, we're at 220,000. I'm just looking at where we were at, I mean, 29, well.
So that's in the maintenance, right?
Potentially go down now, I know we,
We won't be filling the sheds anymore.
yeah, so, we want to refill them before next winter, so the salt really is, for this year, we've spent 168,000 so far. We have another 31,000 in our budget to refill a little bit more in November, December. 23, we always try to fill up, so we're gonna probably spend another 150,000 come fall next year. Do we get in our 2023 budget, or do we potentially get into our 2024 budget where you don't buy the salt in November, December, you try to refill when you have time in January? So it's a way of potentially delaying a little bit of that, a couple months. If we don't, so could we go back and stay at 200,000 instead of 220?
Easily.
I think we maybe could. Do we want to go down to 180,000? I don't think so. This year we spent 168,000. Last winter was a mild winter. So, with a normal winter, we can easily go up to 260,000 plus on salt.
Yeah, especially if we see.
We can hit
ice.
300,000 plus on salt if we have, ice and a little bit harsher winters, so. Now, there are some restrictions that can lock us into quantity where we can only go under or over by 20% of what we are committed to with the state, so.
Yeah, you don't want to get a pinch that way.
Yeah,
But we haven't ordered our 2023 salt yet, that order.
we're locked into the.
We're locked in for 2022, 23. So
Yes,
we're
but
only
not-
like, yeah.
We're locked into the
right.
22-23 winter, we're not locked into the 23-24 winter
Right.
yet.
So, but we won't be taking any this fall, so that's all gonna come in next year's budget. Everything that we ordered.
Right.
Because we filled up with the year before's order, cause it's got kind of weird, so. Well, we're like 3 months off. So normally what we would take in the fall, we're not gonna be taking. So we will take all of that in the 2023.
Because you had this left over, right?
Yes.
And
So,
you
but
got
we're
the-
getting it at a better price. We won't have to probably order as much the year after, maybe. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
because
if
I
you
would
can-
think that older contract would be a better price than what it is now.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, I don't
The
have
the
those.
salt price
contract-
been going up every year regardless, so I don't see it going back down. I would say, especially there's been more and more of a trucking shortage. It's been tough to find
That's what I mean.
operators, and it's not just a this year issue, it's been more and more every year. It's getting really tough for them to find drivers to deliver the salt. So, could we go to 200,000? Like I said, I think we can. Can we go to 180? That's starting to push it on the low end. Like I mentioned before, the bridge supplies, we can go back to 100,000 to 150,000. We're not getting everything done that we want to get done on the bridge maintenance. But we possibly do that.
Our bridges are all fairly, I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, so
We've got some newer bridges here.
yep, so what this is, it's doing some painting on the piling,
Right.
doing some, a lot of it is crack sealing on decks, so we're keeping the cracks sealed up, flood sealing on decks, or we're keeping the salt from penetrating into the
I know.
concrete and corroding the rebars, so we're trying to keep the surface good so it doesn't start corroding and so if you stay on top of it, you can extend the life. As soon as you start to drop that, start growing that rebar, then it deteriorates a lot quicker. So that's
But what I was
probably
getting
where
at, there's
we're
not major repairs that,
No,
it's
we don't have-
maintenance repairs.
No, we have a couple decks that are starting to put a bit of delamination of the concrete where we want to actually go out there and start removing some concrete and doing some bigger patches. And those are the ones that we keep pushing back because we don't have the money to do the bigger repairs. So most of the other stuff, it's the smaller, it's the ceiling, it's the cracks, the little bit of reading some riprap or some channel issues. But yeah, most of it's pretty minor stuff. I think the 100,000 is getting us where we have 3 to 5 bridges each year.
Yeah, this year we budgeted for one.
Well,
We're doing 3.
you budgeted 100,000, you've only used 8,500.
We have 83,000.
Am I looking at the wrong line here?
Well, we maybe haven't used it, but we've contracted for 83,000
Okay.
worth of work this year, and we had to reject a couple bridges if I remember right, or knock them out because the numbers came in too high, that we couldn't do everything we wanted to do. So we did the most important ones to stay within the budget, and then we just dropped the rest off and figured that'll get put on this next year's cycle. So
If we go down to equipment parts,
yep. So
budgeted 225.
Yep.
50,000 so far this year.
yeah, the equipment parts has been an item that it has been dropping year after year as our equipment got in better shape and stuff. So if I go back to straight edge here, at one point we were we were well over 300,000. And that has been slowly dropping here. Actually, it was at 300,000, 302,000 spent in 2017. And then 252,000 was spent in 2018, 230,000 in 2019, 224,000 in 2020. So we budgeted 225,000, I believe, if I remember right, for this year and next year. So we budgeted 250,000 2021. We budgeted 225,000 this year. Next year we put the same budget in, anticipating that continuous drop to keep going, although equipment price or the part prices have jumped up. So and so that's why we kept that the same. For the first 6 months of this year, we were only at 50,000, but the bulk of that price usually jumps up in the second half of the year.
When they go vehicle
when-
inspections.
Yeah, the DOT inspections, gearing up to winter, buying different stuff at that point. So I don't have where we were at last year at this time or at the end of June, but usually
For the year, you were at 162,000 last year for the year.
at the end.
So
Yeah.
there's no reason we couldn't drop that 25,000 to 200. If it doesn't work out, it comes out of that 4.4 anyway, so.
We can try, especially when looking at fund balance. I know
Same
parts
way with
jumped, I know parts have jumped up, so I just don't know exactly how much on an individual basis where it's at. So.
Same way with, we talked about lowering to 200,000, you could go to 180 on salt. I know you, that makes you comfortable, but.
It does if we wanted to keep fund balance the same. But if we're looking at, it's gonna be balanced by fund balance anyway. You drop it if you overrun, you're using fund balance, or you budget high and you use more fund balance in the budget, ultimately it's coming from the same source, so.
So do we farm out all our DOT inspections?
No, we usually do that in-house, so
You do
right now we're without a mechanic right now, so we've had,
So Shane used to do it.
Mechanic has always done it.
Okay,
We don't have a cake.
we don't. So for this year, we might need to farm out some of that DOT inspections and.
Yeah, cause I
depending
don't
on
know
what
if they
the
do
mechanic is saying.
training. Usually the training is in the spring, so I'm not sure they do it training. You know, if the guy comes in and he isn't trained, I'm not exactly sure if there is a class available for him to go to or her.
40,000 out of that, 25,000 out of this one.
We go down to 200,000 on equipment parts. So. that could go down to 420.
77, how much? Do you want to go on the salt, 180?
Oh, he wanted to go down to 200.
Up to 180.
Oh, did we? I thought he didn't want to do it.
you go to 180, couldn't it?
Salt? I don't know.
Got that 25. What's the deal on leased vehicles too? Jumping up to 152.
Those are what you've contracted for.
Yep, so those are contracted lease vehicles that, so because we're not buying them outright and paying them up front, get on that lease and they pay back for 5 years. So as we're getting more vehicles on that lease, as we're selling off.
So we're replacing as we go.
So we're not budgeting to purchase them, but we're budgeting.
To lease.
Yeah, like this last, see, like this last pickup that we just sold that building maintenance had, we got over $9,000 out of that pickup. Where 1 year at least of a pickup is in that same thing, whatever it is, so.
I think we should revisit that.
So.
As we start, okay, so this is the third year.
Fourth, I think.
Yeah, so the lease.
No, I think it's fourth.
So lease.
It'll be the fourth in 2020.
I can tell you in a second here. I have it.
So that lease increase eventually is gonna stop going up and it'll just be that steady every year. There's definitely some advantages of purchasing outright or.
Especially for pickups, I mean, trucks.
We're in the third year. Next year will be the fourth year.
Right, okay. So before we get into that fifth year, where we're gonna have to decide,
Yep.
are we gonna release vehicles, we're not purchasing any of them. That. Just based on the reporting requirements.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Move on to parks.
We're not
And
gonna
then
extend the
airports, we need
leases.
to-
Yeah.
We got airport left, right?
Okay, well, that's good to know.
61, 62 is parks.
I guess we'll move on to parks.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't bring the parks budget with me.
So I have.
Do that. Yeah, sorry. We can share this.
Parks and airport going to next.
Parks is next, 61, 62, then airports to 67, 68.
Yeah, so parks, parks usually in the, so for Wildcat Park, ultimately the bottom line ends up being a zero net for the budget, so So Wildcat Park is in a deficit, so any type of profit from the park goes back in or stays toward paying down the fund balance or the prior year's reimbursement. So there is no major projects anticipated for next year, so there's nothing in the budget that way. We have talked about at the Parks Committee meeting about looking at what it would cost to improve the bathrooms down there. So we're gonna get a price on that, but it's not in the budget that way. Probably want to add into this, the Parks Committee is recommending that we, with the original boat ramp on the north end of Wildcat Park, that was installed by the state. There is no maintenance agreement or agreement with the DNR as far as maintenance of that ramp. And due to that, the county kind of has two options. We can create an agreement with the state, or they have their template. And with that, the state will take on the responsibility of maintenance. And the county cannot charge for use of the boat ramp. Since there's no agreement in place, the state said the other option is if we want to charge for using the boat ramp, like the county board approved previously, that 5,000 per launch or 25,000 per season, we can do that, but the state will not sign a new agreement, and all maintenance and future responsibilities on that boat ramp will become the county's. So
Just for argument's sake, not that we don't want us to make any more time here, but what would be wrong with making DNR maintain that and not charge for it? And hold their feet to the fire to maintain it?
we actually could. The problem is that
Waiting time.
holding
hold
the
their
feet,
feet to-
hold the feet to the fire is really the thing, because they are responsible for the maintenance. They determine when maintenance is required and getting their staff down here. So the issue that we've noticed over the past few years is that when you ask the DNR to come down here to do some maintenance, you have a meeting out there, yep, we're gonna do this, yep, we're gonna do this, and 2 years later, they still haven't been down. So I don't think
We're
there's
letting-
anything.
We're
that we-
letting them off the hook though. That's what I mean.
I don't know if there's anything that we can do as a county that we dictate when they maintain it and how they maintain it. That's just their responsibility. So with that minimal maintenance and with the amount of money that was brought in for the boat launch in 2021, no, that wasn't it. Or do the prior year's numbers on you for the boat ramp? I believe Jake said yesterday it was about $5,000 or $6,000 that got brought in for that ramp.
The launching fees.
For the launch fees,
So
yeah.
that,
So year to date.
the launch fees here, it's $5,600 budgeted.
Yeah.
Well, that's year to date. It's right there as well.
That was the actual, well, yeah, that would have been the actual year to date for 2021 was $5,600. You know, then, so, you know, there's a lot of the boulders, they're using the bathrooms out there. You seal coat the road coming in, you're maintaining the parking lot, you added stripes, pavement markings out there. Try to do some work with the ramp and the docks and stuff. You're not spending $5,600 worth per year on that. The boat ramp should be good for, without any major repairs or improvements for hopefully 20 years. So over that 20 years time, you bring in $100,000 to spend on other maintenance activities out there. So
reduce the debt that they owe the county.
And you work that down to use that to help reduce the debt for paying off those bathrooms and everything else has been done out there. So if we want to add that back into the budget for boat launch fees, you could put that back in here as far as the proposed 2023 budget for that line item. So it doesn't ultimately impact the bottom line with that zero net levy for Wildcat, but it's a line item change.
Generates revenue that can go back into being used to reduce what Wildcat owns the county.
Yep.
Owns the county. Or you can set up a separate fund for the 5,000 and just keep it separate for future maintenance on the boat ramp.
Well, that north boat ramp, we could just well forget that, because that's gonna fill in all the time with the current in the rocks. The first one right up by the office, that one there is a waste of time. Sorry to say, but it is. If we're gonna spend money, we should go on the other end and widen that boat ramp out, make it nice, charge $5 and people will be happy. But you can't charge $5 when they're busting their prop off every goddamn time they go in the river. I mean, that's not gonna go. People aren't gonna come. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is.
I think the
Is
north
that the ramp
is
that you're
no good.
talking about is the north
You'll
ramp?
never
Yeah,
get
so,
that fixed
so
until
the,
current
the,
comes through.
the
They're so hard.
fee that this is would be tied, if we got an agreement, that would be just for the maintenance of the north ramp. The
The
south
north ramp.
ramp would be separate if we. The
That's
agreement
a
would be.
non-DNR,
Yeah,
that's a
MinDOT's not gonna
non-DNR
maintain
ramp.
the south ramp either way.
No, we're gonna
So,
have to
so
take
if
care
we
of
don't
it.
have an agreement, if we charge the fee, we can use that money on either ramp. Like I said, we can use it to help maintain the bathrooms and the other services that the boaters or anyone down there is using at the park. You know, boaters come in there, they'll hang out in
Gives you more
different
control.
areas. Yeah, so it gives you more flexibility and control. We do have it in the works to dredge out that south boat ramp. Found the old permit. It talks about maintenance on that. DNR wants us to apply for a permit amendment. Even though you're not changing anything, you want to go back to the original. So there's a fee and cost of doing that. We're kind of having a little bit of a dispute on, you know, do we pay that fee or do we
We
feel
don't
we
have a
should have paid
contract
anything?
with the DNR, so we don't really need to worry about the DNR.
They're still permitting.
Yeah, but if they don't have a contract with us, with UC County and Wildcat,
It's state permitting. That's different from that.
that's all ground they own, I suppose. Is that how that
Well,
works?
no, it's state permitting
It's
over
still the
stormwater.
permitting process you gotta do.
Yeah, water quality. Permitting stuff.
Welcome to government.
So the camping fees is, that's our half.
Yep, so if the camping fees go up a little bit, so that might change, the proposed budget, we can look at that number again. If the
So the
board does.
proposed budget is 70,000 in camping fees. That's,
Oh.
is that including the increase they talked about this morning? You talked about raising the fees, or Donna did, I should say.
No, it doesn't include any change.
Okay,
But the bottom line for Wildcat will always stay zero. You can raise the fees, but we still have to keep that zero.
Gotta be zero
It'll
till
just
we get
be
paid.
more money to
It's
either
always
pay
zero.
back.
You gotta put everything
If we
back.
pay everything.
but what I'm
off,
getting at
we
is,
just start having
half of that
revenue
is
over
what
there.
we get.
We
The
can't
other
have-
half goes
we
for
can't use it
the
as a
contract
matter
with
of
service.
Yeah, it's,
Yes, but the Army Corps requires, you know, it's Army Corps land, so any money that comes into the park needs to stay in the park. So we can budget higher, we can make more, but that money stays in an account
I
dedicated. to
It'll
understand
be
that.
zero no matter
He's
what.
just wondering about.
Yep.
That's only half the camping fees, that's what he's saying.
Oh,
There's a-
correct.
It's
It's
per
in
the
the con-
contract.
it's
yeah.
in the contract.
So how do we pay Jake?
We don't, he keeps some of the.
He
fees.
keeps, that,
Fees.
Up to a
that's what
certain
I'm
amount,
getting.
They, we collect the seasonal fee. In the contract, it says Jake gets $39,000.
It's not a percentage, it's a number.
It's a number
At the beginning.
at the beginning. So
We're
we
dealing
don't
with
send
cash
him,
here,
we
right?
don't send him that money. We keep it here when the camping fees that he collects hits that $39,000, then he starts sending half of it to us. So it's not necessarily a 50-50. And that was a lower amount, but
So
we
he quits at
increased
39 and then the rest comes to us.
No,
No, it's
50% of the.
there's a
after.
flat 39, then 50-50 above that.
We changed that to 42
But I mean, that's.
because of insurance.
Right.
So
Which
Jake
is,
gets-
it's actually 39,500. And then plus the insurance, if we figure the insurance, right, Carol?
Yes.
Right, that's the
Which will
42,
be
yeah.
roughly 42.
Yeah.
That's what it's 42. It's 42. So we collect all the money from the seasonal campers that pay the $1,500 for the season. Once, and we get that. He collects for all the people that come in over the weekends or for the month long.
Okay.
And once he hits the $42,000, everything after that is split 50-50.
With
Us
him.
and Jake.
That's correct.
So do we know what that final number is?
Well, we'll probably never know till we put it in the ground.
When does the season actually end?
November 1st.
Yeah, so October first is the official end of the season, but the park manager is allowed to keep the park open beyond that if the weather cooperates and he chooses.
So we won't really know what that final number is until park officially closes.
Okay.
Gonna put in a credit card thing down there or not? No?
Jake said, I won't do that.
Is he gonna run it next year?
He wants to. Won't do credit cards. So if somebody wants to use the credit card, send them up to Don at the courthouse and let them take care of
Okay, well,
That's
I
cool.
got
Yeah.
a 1 o'clock appointment.
Anyway, yeah.
it. Yeah, let's move on.
Let's go to airport.
Well, Bocce Park,
I have one thing here too. Did you deal with this help grant?
yep, so that's said Bocce Park. So Bocce Park meeting yesterday, we talked about, that there's a help grant through, not sure where.
Soil and water.
Well, Soil and Water got a help grant through some state or federal agencies, so they would like to know if the county would do some pollinator planting, brush management, and a prescribed burn. So that, is that included in this
No.
budget? That is not included in the Wildcat budget that was
I'm
submitted.
just looking at the email there. I didn't do it.
And then there is some additional discussion.
Is there?
I thought that was in there
Did you
initially.
include it? Cause I don't think I did.
As they figure that out, there's additional discussion on, we should, weed spray out there twice a year instead of once. We should do a little bit more maintenance out there on a few items. Just trying to keep that park a little bit more user friendly. So if we do that, we should probably look at.
So. it doesn't matter.
Yeah, so, but really, if we do spraying twice as much and some of the other maintenance, we should really probably double the amount of the budget in the Bocce Park for.
But that's hundreds of dollars. It's a small amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going from 500 to
1700.
Last summer, Bocce Park was pretty busy this year.
I know. Or it was good.
I
That's
go into it on
1,500.
Sunday.
Or on Sunday.
Hike the whole trail.
Yeah, I think I didn't add.
Any, then we got the airport left.
Yep, airport, so, the airport stuff I just showed.
We got a budget here, but
So, okay,
can I
Yeah,
do-
the budget really, there was nothing done with the airport except take out the
But are you
project.
gonna add weed spray
yeah,
to
so,
Bodger though?
so at the airport, so the airport budget was submitted, prior to, we had an airport meeting. We talked at the airport meeting about adding, some potential projects in there. It came up to about 110,000 worth of local levy dollars. I don't anticipate that all would happen next year. Because it has some, well over $1 million worth of projects out there to essentially get stuff ready for additional hangars. So building some additional taxiways, some pavement. There's some design involved with that. Then there's some local cost participation along with some entitlement funds. I think the vast majority of that work would take place at the earliest in the fall of 2023. So that is not reflected in this, but that would be a budget change. But I don't know that I want to talk too much about the airport without being able to go back and run some numbers. But I don't see that stuff going down. And I think we're at a point now where Sheila and I can probably sit down and figure some stuff out along with our consultant on what that budget will really happen for changes.
So instead of being 15,000, it'd be 135,000.
Yeah, but it won't all be next year. It'll be over multiple years. And the recommendation of the airport commission, which included, Greg and Bob were on that, was to take that out of highway fund balance and then you maybe reimburse it back through rent of land in
We're
the
already
future.
gonna use highway fund balance for highway.
Correct, so that's again, a
Not
decision.
all.
of the board of the Fund balance and how much do you want to use?
What
What
are
did
we
you
looking
say,
at?
Eric?
So
How did you word that?
We're already using highway
Oh,
fund balance
yes.
for highway.
I thought you meant you could only use highway fund balance for highway.
No, I didn't say that.
No, okay.
Oh, you could use it for that.
You can, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, overall, we'll look at this so that that bottom number might change a little bit one way or another, not counting projects, and then we look at project
Well,
impact.
it could
so.
change drastically. 15,000.
Yes, if we add those projects in, definitely, yes. So just something to be.
But I
Where
think-
we increase the revenue, offset it, so it doesn't change the effect.
Right.
It would
If used
increase
fund
revenue.
balance.
Take either revenue out of that, or we take it, let's say we take it out of ARPA. Either way, the increase to the levy doesn't change.
Right.
I mean, the consensus was that there wouldn't be levy money used for this project. So it would, you'd have to find, decide if it was coming from here or over there, and a payback if you're renting it, but not levy dollars.
Change the levy. It isn't gonna change from what it is. To move on to the sheriff's department.
Yep.
We can get done in 9 minutes.
Just
Well, it's,
tell them it's all good.
how far is? 1
9
o'clock?
minutes and we'll talk.
So we gotta be down here at 12:30.
Well, you might want to eat.
Your appointment's at 1?
I, 1 o'clock on the cross.
Well, we gotta cram this in because we have a workshop.
What's that?
Sweet, huh?
We'll talk real slow on the two.
You got all your slashing out of your system, so we should be good.
Well, we ain't quite done yet. Hopefully we don't have to do too much. So what number are we here?
43.
Other than the salaries and related stuff, what's the major things you're looking at here?
Well, as you know, as usual, the salary and benefits is typically our highest increase. But I guess as an overview that there's only a few things that have increased significantly. One is line item 6202. That's our telephone and mobile connectivity. Andy has advised us to budget for piece of equipment that's called a Cradle Point. It's for mobile connectivity. Obviously, the mobile connectivity is critical to the deputies out there on the road. So that increased by what Andy recommended we increase it by. The other one is the annual service agreement went up 3,800. I'll just summarize that by saying that that's the new increase with going to Central Square and so forth. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Brian. Okay, and law enforcement supplies, that had a fairly, that's 6451. That had a fairly significant increase this year or for next year. That's due to basically our 6 month spending projection, and then there'll be 5 deputies that will need to get new vests next year. Now, we pay it out of this line item, but we do get reimbursed. That that's kind of but it does show. an increase. And then we got fuel. Yeah. Fuel, that's another significant increase. The rest of the line items and fuel, I guess, is obviously we're gonna be over budget this year. That's a given, but like I said, we've increased it based on an estimate of how many miles per year we're going and that kind of stuff, so. And then the fuel covers the jail and the sheriff's
Do
office.
you have the option of limiting mileage? Didn't the highway patrol do that? Said you can only drive so many miles. They kept it.
They never did it when I was there.
We did that one year, we were allowed 100 miles a day.
That was before my time, so you're
That was
dating
Nixon
yourself there. We hadn't done that. Brian and I talked about it a couple of times this year when gas was up, $4 or so, but that's kind of a double-edged sword too, because we're not out there being visible like we need to be, and then what happens when they get to their allotted miles and then, something else happens, so obviously they'd have to respond, but I just didn't feel we were quite there yet where we should be limiting miles.
So the purchase of the two cop cars from Spring Grove gonna be on this year's budget, or are you gonna try to finagle that into next?
Yeah, it should be on this year's budget.
Yeah, we'll be doing that this year. There'll be the cost of the deputies, but you'll be billing Spring Grove for certain portions of it or so much hourly
So many
rate.
hours of coverage, yeah.
For this year, yes.
Yeah.
Which we're estimating will make up for about half of
Yep.
the
It
funds.
was
for the
like
wage.
75 and then it was gonna, you're gonna get like 38 or something.
Yeah.
But you did also approve using ARPA to cover that gap.
And I. They thought the
Jesus,
purchasing would be this
we
year.
have no ARPA left here pretty quick.
Were they using ARPA for
They use it
purchasing
from their
two
list.
squad cars from Spring Grove too?
That's the gap.
Oh,
right?
okay,
Isn't that the gap?
yeah, I wasn't sure if it was talking about
Mhm.
employees only.
That's not one of the things that you've got listed on your ARPA list.
Only because I didn't have a number. But it is, if you look under the HC sheriff. Yeah, Spring Grove contract initial costs under the HC sheriff, but maybe.
There's not-
Listed, but there's no number.
Yeah, so I'll put that in there. I was gonna find out a number.
We can tell you the Tahoe is a 2020 with only 10,000 miles on it. And it's coming fully equipped, so they do want a fair
You'd want
dollar
that
amount
one.
for that.
Sure.
But it'll get several years of use out of it, and then even when we're done with it, those towers are still bringing good resale value. So I'm not sure what they did there with their equipment that they put in. It's about double what we pay. So it must be.
Huh.
I don't know. I can't.
They got the leather seats.
I
Well,
can't comment on it, I guess,
Yeah,
because I don't know.
The equipment they put in was 20-some thousand, they said, just for equipment. And we spend,
Somewhere between 10 and 12.
Yeah, somewhere there, so.
Upgrade. So, and then the other bigger increase is the squad upfitting, and Brian kind of deals with that portion and the vehicles lease. So, as you know, we had our squad order canceled, so that's part of the reason for the increase for next year. But if you want to enlighten them on that, I guess.
So the increase really is because the squad cars that we ordered this year got canceled. So we're behind the 8 ball. It's in next year's budget, but this year's budget for the squad car. I'm assuming make up the difference since we haven't purchased anything this year.
So we'll carry that over then.
Well,
That money.
I would assume so. So we're, instead of our 2 cars we got ordered now, they won't be here till December, which we won't get it in going till 23. And our 23 vehicles we'll have for next year will be included also in the budget. But it's hard to say when we order them and when we get them, it's 2 different things.
Harold, will we be able to carry that money over to next year?
It's in fund balance, yeah.
So that's kind of a summary of this, what I would consider to be significant increases. The rest of them are either slight, downward projections, and some are slight upward projections. You know, as well as we do, that the cost of everything is considerably more expensive. So we're trying to eat some of that wherever we can, but in some areas it's just not possible. But I think the rest of them are fairly significant or insignificant. When you look at it from a line by line projection.
Spots to carve off in any place.
I've never really built any fluff into the budget, it's kind of, I look at it as it is what it is. And we try to stay within that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't.
But there is the $8,000 in the emergency management that I put in
Yes.
8,800 and it should only be 800 in their registration. So
Where is that?
you got 8,000.
That's in the
Quick,
emergency,
fast, $8,000.
in the
Which,
emergency.
which
management.
page is that?
That's actually on page 54, the 281 budget.
You guys want to finish the 201 first, or you want
Yeah.
to skip ahead?
$122,000 change.
Yeah.
Much of that it was wages and how much was insurance?
Well, wages and insurance together, I think.
Right around close to 50, high 40s.
And the rest is your cars, your vehicles.
Yeah, and
Fitting and
Mhm.
lease.
And mobile communication equipment at 63,000, is that the stuff we're gonna buy with ARPA money that we talked about?
yeah. the
That's in
radio
2022.
That'd be 2022.
It's taken out for 2023.
That's why it's not there.
And actually, you had talked about having a possibly a lower cost
Yeah.
radio that you could get, that some of that could be applied to the Spring Grove.
Different SWAT car.
Yeah.
Radios.
Yeah. And I'm still field testing these other radios, but so far we haven't discovered any issues.
What's next here?
We got law enforcement supplies. Year to date, in 22, we did 9,500. Got the proposed budget, we've got 30,000.
Yes, that's when I commented earlier on that we will have 5 new vests that'll come out of that line item, but we will get reimbursed back for them. And then we've had again, everything is costing more and more, so trying to factor in some increase there.
Like for fuel, Mark, what do you guys just go out wherever you're at and fill up like in whatever town or
Yeah.
in it's not like it's different places.
We try to give all businesses.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Houston County, or do we have one guy that likes to go to Rushmore?
I mean, they pay that close attention.
Well, what I
Don't
was
be
getting,
surprised if
what I
they
was
go to-
getting about on these, like for fuel cards, you can get a little discount. I don't know if that, maybe we can't do that. I don't know.
We do get discounts.
Do you?
well, the federal excise tax. And stuff.
Right, but
That's
you're talking about,
eliminated?
you're talking about
So you-
actual stores. You're talking about, right?
Right, like Quick Trip, you get a discount for going to.
We get a quick trip discount for using the Wex cards.
What is there?
Okay.
We implemented that.
You get swipe it, you get 3 cents off.
I think they get more than that, Houston County, they burn a lot of gas.
So we don't get charged the
fuel
road tax, fuel tax, the 18 cents or whatever?
Federal.
Federal.
Yeah, we still pay state, I think, right?
Next. Got any more questions for us?
Well, on that line, we got all kinds of pages we should be moving.
Mhm.
The next one is the sheriff's contingent, that's got a, $236 increase. That's kind of a. Forfeitures is kind of a zeroed out, we don't typically levy. So then next one is recreational safety, which is Brian's in charge of that area of our office as well as the budget, but that's got a 0% increase. Medical examiner, kind of makes this pitch every year. I'm not real sure why it comes out of our budget because I have nothing to do with it. But, that's got a $1,200 increase just from contract or contractual.
You're probably the ones that call
Well, we are.
them.
All right, and then jail. That budget too, obviously we're service orientated, so the majority of our budget seems to go to the wages, salaries and benefits and so forth. So that's where a lot of our increase is there.
I see inmate meals have gone up 20,000. Are
That's
we having
gonna-
that many inmates
No, it's a huge increase.
per meal?
Yeah. Yep. The other one, inmate medical contract fees, 6265. For right now, I've just put 100,000 in there. Men who are with currently and have been for several years, hit us with a humongous increase, 15%. We've told them that we can't absorb that big of a hit in 1 year.
I've been hearing a lot about that. I talked to Brian about that.
Yeah, so
Most counties are getting away from them because of.
well, we got them kind of on hold. Dr. Todd said he's willing to negotiate, but I don't know how we're gonna, contract says 2% increase annually. I don't know that we're gonna get them to come from 15 down to 2. So Dean is waiting for he visited with another vendor last week or the week before, so he's waiting for a quote from them. So right now, that's we're probably gonna be somewhere in that number, but that's gonna change. Either if we end up staying with men or if we end up going with a new vendor.
This is for inmate medical contract?
Like jail nursing and so forth.
Yep.
And any other big changes?
No, it's just the inmate meals and medical contract fees is the two big ones there. Meals, we're still kind of looking at what kind of options. We'll be away from the Winona contract potentially next fall, if not sooner.
Opens in April,
Last-
supposedly.
Yeah, they're talking about a completion date of June and then opening by like September. We've got some issues with that too, as far as we got staff that are just, they've had it. These Winona inmates are unbelievable to deal with. So we've got staff that are looking for other jobs because of that.
They give us the rock.
Well, they're down to just 6 cells up there. But the mental health issues that come with their inmates is just, jailer spends 12 hours a day with them.
Yeah, they're unruly.
Yeah, it gets old fast.
So we're looking at that
We do have a
contract
30-day
coming to
out,
it.
right?
Yeah,
to an end in
I
September.
think it's like a 60-day or something, but we haven't. Say that again.
So we're looking at that contract coming to an end by September possibly.
Of 23 is.
STS.
We've put that in the budget right now. I guess I'm not prepared to really talk about it today. But we do need to sit down and talk about it. I guess it's a significant amount of money. Are you guys available like next Tuesday during your work group?
We're on a bus tour.
They're on the tour.
The bus tour starts at 9:30, so we do have just a really quick between 9 and 9:30 if you need to squeeze something in for discussion only.
Okay.
But, you know, people will probably be coming at 9 and it's gonna be a full, we're going on a bus tour for the comp plan with TKDA.
Where is STS?
It's in the last line on jail.
Oh, no, I was looking for STS, not six.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
These acronyms.
Yeah.
I guess he did say.
Well, if you wanted to bring it up at 9 o'clock on our workshop, we could try to squeeze that in.
Yeah, Sam would like to come, be a part of that discussion as well.
Okay. Okay.
Moving on to emergency management. That's got just under $4,000 increase. That's mostly due to wages and salaries and benefits again as well. So I guess in my world, I don't consider that a significant increase for an overall for a whole budget. There's not a lot to really cut from on that budget at all.
What's the net effect of all of this? Police department, jail, what the net effect is?
No, I can add it quick.
It's part of the general fund, so.
Right.
Number.
Is Department of Corrections is part of the sheriff's office too?
No.
Oh, you got $88,000. Or that should have been $800. I guess as long as we're still on emergency management, we'll just identify that line item that Carol mentioned earlier, where it was 6243 registration training fees. What we requested was 800 got put in there originally. So
Yeah, that's right. It should
taken
be
out.
800.
So it's around 166,000, all the departments together.
That percentage.
Of their
Total.
last year's?
Percentage of increase. Sorry to ask that question.
We're talking 21.
Just yours. Sheriff,
What was that increase?
voting.
166.
Your total budget is what, 1.6?
Well, they're separate for the jail and the sheriff's office, but this current year's was 1.9. Next year's for the sheriff's office now, next year's was 2.
I'm talking to myself out loud.
Then the jails,
Yeah, this is my mess.
22 was 1.6, rounding.
For the jail.
Questions for him?
We're just waiting for their sentence to serve part.
So 2,000,000 and 1.7. Find the sheriff and the jail. So that's
10%. From 1.7 to 2,000,000.
1.7
Right.
and 2,000,000, so that's 3.7 million. $166,000 increase.
Oh, man, he'll come back with a
It's a,
bigger.
it's a lot of money. but-
Right. Those two together, because it's depressing.
Sure.
I guess that'd be your job to add them up, I guess.
12:16, let's be done.
All right, I'm done. Anybody else got any more? I guess, thank you, guys.
All right, you don't have to ask for any public comment. We did that in the other part, right?
Well, I guess all we need to do now is make a motion to adjourn. We got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.